Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It is 7 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I am your friend and radio buddy. I am your Farb. I am Brian Wilson, and I'll be with you till 7. And we thank you for joining us here on what is another glorious spring day. A wonderful and warm 77 degrees here in bucolic Watertown. And, we're approaching 80 degrees here in the middle of March. That's good. I did not make my first foray into the pool last night. I was tempted, but I am going to do it. In fact, you may not know it, but I am now wearing, you can't see it on Super Talk TV. I am wearing my bathing suit. And I'm going to, as soon as the show is over, I'm taking a dip. See, that's the wonderful thing. You never know what the TV people are wearing underneath the desk. When you watch the news, you have no idea.
Yeah, we really don't want to know, I think.
Yeah, no. I used to get grief when I worked at Fox because I would wear tennis shoes. And sometimes you would get a glimpse of them in the corner of the screen, and people gave me grief. And now everybody I see on TV is wearing tennis shoes, even with a suit.
Yeah, so I've seen that a lot too. Yeah, I
don't know what's going on with that. Well, anyway, we got a lot to cover here. We'll start out with a 2024 update, and I got a story that, man, you're not. This is pretty remarkable stuff when you've been covering politics as much as I have, and you start to see things like this. You wonder, man, are we really going through a major shift in this country? And it may well be. This story I found in PJ Media, but it really talks about the observations of a Financial Times columnist and a person who's really good at going through data. His name is John Byrne Murdoch. He's been crunching numbers on the 2024 vote, and he's reached some pretty interesting conclusions. We've known for years that black and Hispanic vote has been trending to be more Republican. But as the Democrat share of the white vote shrinks and the GOP minority support increases, Democrats are finding themselves in dire straits. Here's what he says. American politics is in the midst of a racial realignment. And this is, I think, is simultaneously one of the most important social trends in the U.S. today and one of the most poorly understood. He says that if you take one thing away from this thread that he put on X, it's that the left's challenge with non-white voters is much deeper than it first appears. And what his basic premise is that, the race politics, the race card politics, the kind of stuff that the Democrats throw out there to try to divide us as a country is just wearing thin with everyone. Nobody even listens to it anymore. And so, it's not impacting minority voters the way it once did. And so they're looking out for their own best interests. I happened to come across this couple of sound bites gathered by the folks at Newsmax. They're just doing person-on-the-street interviews, and they talk to two different black women and ask them this question.
Trump versus Biden, who are you going to vote for?
Trump.
Okay, and why?
I like cheap gas.
Trump. I'm going to be honest, Trump, because I feel like he did do a lot for us. I feel like Biden did more for, the immigrants. No offense to the immigrants, but, yeah.
I think Trump's done more for Americans. Biden does more.
Yeah, for the immigrants.
Now, there you go. A less racially divided America, this guy writes, is an America where people vote more based on their beliefs than their identity. And they say this is a big challenge for Democrats because the things that they used to throw out there that would have an impact no longer have an impact. It's pretty amazing. And when you look at the graph, I wish there are times when I wish I could throw this thing up where you can see the graph, but you can find this story, by the way, at yourfarb.com if you want to look in more detail and you can look at this graph. What you see is minority voters. the graph is that they're going down precipitously for Democrats and going up remarkably for Republicans. It is a very identifiable trend that's been going on for some time now. This is not new, but it certainly seems to be getting to the sort of an inflection point where Democrats can no longer count on minority voters. And I think this is huge, really, really big. So I suggest you read this story. It's called Confirmed Minority Voters Shifting to GOP in Large Numbers. And it is very eye-opening and I think very, very positive stuff for conservatives and Republicans who are, wondering what's going to happen in this coming election. If as I understand it, the last number that I saw reliably was that Donald Trump has about 21% support among blacks. And you say, well, that's still not a lot. Well, it is when you consider that this is an election that's going to be decided on the margins, and 21% of the black vote going away for Democrats and landing in the Trump column is a big deal. That's 3 times more black voters than voted for Trump last time around. So, I mean, really, honestly, this is huge, and I think a very positive thing. I think minority voters, by and large, are starting to just get very weary of the same old stuff being thrown out there by the Democrats, and they just decided they've had enough. And they remember that when Trump was president, financially, they had it going pretty good. They really did. And, black unemployment, for example, at record lows, had never been lower. I think you have to go way back to the 50s to find a time when it had been lower than it was during Trump's era. So, I mean, interesting stuff. And sort of a related story, Kamala Harris's approval rating is high among Democrats, but not anywhere else. This is from a very interesting poll and study done by the folks at USA Today. They found that the national survey found that 52% of registered voters disapprove of her job performance, and 36% approve of how she's handled the role. She's trailing Biden, and she's got worse numbers than Biden. Asked to weigh Harris's personal popularity, the numbers don't get much better. 38% of Americans have a favorable view of Harris, lagging behind Biden, who is and USA Today polling is favorably viewed by 41%. Other polls have it much lower. Democrat allies warned Biden's team a year ago that they need to boost Harris and clap back against the withering effectiveness of Republican attacks, but it's not working. More than half don't view Harris to be qualified to be president. And so, I mean, they got a real problem. They got a man who can barely remember what day of the week it is, who is the president of the United States, who keeps telling everybody, I'm on top of my game. Just watch me. We've been watching, and it doesn't look too good. And then as vice president, you have somebody who is not thought of very highly by a large swath of American voters. Panic time for Democrats, writes redstate.com, as Joe Biden gets zero bump from terrible State of the Union speech. We've talked about this before in recent days. The disconnect between the press and average Americans was laid bare following Joe Biden's angry and divisive State of the Union speech in early March. The president appeared to be hopped up on stimulants, according to the Red State. That's their observation. I don't disagree. He focused on Ukraine and January 6th before getting to the things that Americans were most concerned about. It didn't work. It was a terrible speech, and there's been absolutely zero bump, no bump whatsoever from all of this. A campaign advisor was asked to talk about that, and here is a junior campaign spokesman from the Biden team.
The former president has said that he wants to debate the president anytime, anywhere, under any conditions with any moderator. Will the president take him up on that?
I think it's really funny that Donald Trump keeps saying things from Truth Social when he just stays in the basement of Mar-a-Lago. I don't think he's done any campaigning this week while the president's been out there. But look, Major, the president is traveling the country, talking to the voters who will decide this election. We haven't had the conversation about something that may happen in August. But what I can say is the debate plays out every time Joe Biden talks about what he is fighting for and what Donald Trump is fighting for, which is bad, it's rejected, it's toxic, and it's not the American way. Did you notice how he didn't say anything about how Joe Biden would be willing to debate Donald Trump? That was the question. And they sort of hem and haw when you talk about the numbers. Okay, and speaking of numbers, let's go through some numbers. I've got some hot new stuff from the battlegrounds, which, of course, is where we really need to focus. Arizona. Fox has Trump leading in Arizona, battleground state, by 4.
In Pennsylvania, I'll just go to the five-way race here. The Fox has Trump leading by 4 again. The Pennsylvania number looks pretty solid here. The Hill has a same poll out in Pennsylvania, and they have Trump leading by 4 as well. In Nevada, an organization known as Noble Predictive Insights has Trump leading by 5 against Biden, but in the five-way race, and when you put all the other names in there, he wins Nevada by 7. Then there's a brand new poll that just came out in the last few minutes from Quinnipiac, and it shows that in Michigan, and boy, I'm telling you, Michigan is shaping up to be the battleground state that everybody's going to be fighting hard for. They have President Trump leading Biden by 3 points, and then if you add in the 5, you add the other 5, it grows to 5 points. And that's right. And so Michigan is maybe pulling away from Joe Biden. And I'm telling you, I don't think there's a pathway to get 270 electoral college votes if you don't have Michigan. And speaking of electoral college votes, I looked again today. There's been some adjustment to the Real Clear Politics average. They have Trump at 200 and I'm sorry, I don't have that number. But I have they have Trump at 257. No, that's where I'm sorry. Excuse me. My notes are so badly written I can't read them. I have looked at their numbers and they still have it. I think of 219 to 215 for Trump. Trump leads in the Electoral College vote. I have done my own analysis, and remember, you need 270. The Brian Wilson Electoral College map has Trump at 257. I'm still calling Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin as too close to call, TC. But we're getting very close to that 270, which, again, is still very early, but I like it. Ohio, not a battleground state, but listen to this. Survey USA, Trump leads in Biden by 12 in Ohio. And that's pretty good. And right now, this is what I was looking for, the Real Clear Politics average of polls, Trump now leads in all 6 battleground states, although in Pennsylvania and I believe in Minnesota, it is very tight, very tight, but doing pretty well in these battleground states. Again, I know it's early, but I'm when you start to look at some of these things in totality, when you sort of pull back and say, all right, the numbers are looking in the right direction. Then we got this whole story about how minorities are walking away from Democrats in a big way. We hear other stories, anecdotally about how people are fed up with Joe Biden, and they don't feel like Democrats don't feel like they've been taken good care of. They have irritations with the Biden administration. I don't know. It just sort of feels like there's something going on out there, and it's good for conservatives, and it's good for Donald Trump, and it's not very good right now for Joe Biden. Again, I'm not trying to pump sunshine. If I thought there was bad news, I would share it with you as well, but I'm not finding much bad news out there. It's all pretty strong news for Donald Trump, and the news for Joe Biden just continues to look, pretty bleak. I can't find anything positive that people are saying about the state of the Biden campaign. 20 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Let me tell you about the Wellness Institute of Nashville. They're such a good company. They've been around for a while, and they really want to take care of you and make you feel better. Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley can help you find a pain-free life, and they're going to do that and save you some money at the same time. I mean, listen to this. They're freezing costs at the 2023 level. That's right, half off spinal decompression treatment, half off the KT knee machine, and new patients can get a full consultation for just $23. Now, for that $23, you'll get an exam, a consultation, They'll go over any X-rays you may have, or if you have an MRI that you want to bring in, they will do that as well. If you need an X-ray, they'll do one. And then Dr. Mitchell will go over your condition and put a game plan together. The whole operation is designed to make you start feeling better soon. Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley are experts. Dr. Mitchell has studied and practiced all over the world. Dr. Ashley not only has chiropractic experience, but has achieved clinical excellence in holistic healing, ranging from nutrition, cold laser, stress reduction, and more. So call Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley to set up your consultation today, 615-246-5009. I'm Brian Wilson, and I put my stamp of approval on the Wellness Institute of Nashville.
A possible pause in New York's upcoming criminal trial against former President Trump. Also, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, he's still getting a lot of heat about his remarks this morning about the Israeli elections. And a Rutherford County teacher is under investigation, and we'll tell you why. Those stories at 3:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Right, sorry, didn't mean to step on you, Jay. Jay Harper in today for Mac Morey, who's taking a day off, and Chris Weber's in the control room pushing the blinky buttons. Good to have you both in position there today. The weather is just glorious today, but I just want to warn you, we are talking about potentially some storms pulling through here overnight, and they had said some of the storms might be, pretty severe thunderstorms. So you might want to pull the cushions. If you put the cushions out, bring them in.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a good time right now, last few days, to have the cushions out. So
yeah, I mean, it's nice. I am officially, I've put all my other footwear away. It is now flip-flop season for me. I'm not going back. I don't care what happens. Short of another snowstorm, I'm going to stay in flip-flops until further notice.
Wow. All right.
I know. Well, that's one of the great things about working from home. I can sit here and deliver the news and bring you, scintillating interviews. And I can also be in my bathing suit and my flip-flops. You wouldn't know. You have no way of knowing.
Wouldn't be the wiser.
Because you only see me from about the second button on the shirt up.
Yep.
So
that's all we need. We don't need any more.
No, you don't really need any more. That is for certain. I want to mention that coming up at 5:05 today, very excited. We haven't had Governor Bill Lee on the program in quite a while. He'll be joining us at 5:05, and we'll talk about school choice, how he thinks it's going. Well, a whole list of things that we really need to catch up on, and then we will look forward to that at 5:05. Be sure, if you have to leave, to swing back by. I think it's going to be a pretty good interview. And again, we appreciate the governor's office for joining us here a little bit later today. So anyway, it's all pretty good. We're making real progress here in bucolic Watertown in Studio A with the ant problem, thanks to the advice that people gave us. I mean, I don't know what this tarot stuff is, but the ants are gone.
It's good stuff, man. I'm telling you. Yeah.
I look on the wall, and I no longer. I don't think this got them, but I don't have any ladybugs. And the one wasp, well, I dispatched that one to wasp heaven, so that one is not a problem anymore. But I mean, it's amazing stuff. They apparently, and I didn't chase them away. I mean, I didn't kill them. I just sort of shoot them away, and they touch this stuff, and then they take it back to the nest. Is that it?
That's the way I understand it.
Go back to the ant bed and wherever they come from, and then apparently they all die there. So. The only good ant is a dead ant, but it was getting bad. I mean, I was getting the ant willies. I had ants crawling on my arm. I don't know what was going on, but that's what happens when you build a studio over your garage.
Well, they can wander in.
That's right. All right, so we got a good show lined up here. A lot of stuff to cover, and again, you want to hang around and try to catch this interview that we're going to be doing at 5:05, right after the 5 o'clock news, with Jay Harper today. Let's call it 3:30 now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good afternoon. It is 3:30, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got 78 degrees, increasing clouds, and the weather, it is going to be changing. We'll have that forecast for you. We've got a traffic report coming up as well. A possible pause in New York's upcoming criminal trial against former President Trump as Manhattan prosecutors request time to shift through a mountain of new federal evidence that has appeared in this case. Aaron Katersky, he's the ABC representative who is following this case.
The U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan turned over thousands of pages, and apparently thousands more are coming, so many that the Manhattan District Attorney's Office has asked for a 30-day adjournment of the trial, which was supposed to start this month, March 25th, with the jury selection.
House Republican leadership today, while at the GOP retreat in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia, continuing to blast Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's remarks on Israel, calling the comments inappropriate and disgraceful. Schumer earlier today called on Israel to hold new elections, saying he believes Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is an obstacle to peace in the region amid a growing humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Here's House Speaker Mike Johnson, the Republican from Louisiana.
We want to speak very clearly and concisely to say that this is not only highly inappropriate, it's just plain wrong.
Fox 17 in Nashville reporting the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation is looking into allegations that a Rutherford County teacher took inappropriate photos of himself inside a school. According to a spokesperson with the district, the TBI is investigating John Duncan, who teaches personal finance and history at Daniel McKee Alternative School. The district says he has been suspended without pay pending the outcome of the investigation. That's standard procedure. Duncan was reportedly hired at the school in August of last year. He previously worked at Stewart's Creek High last school year. That is the latest news, traffic, and weather. They're next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
You know, if you've learned anything over the years, it's that you can expect change. And if you're nearing retirement, change, well, that can be a scary thing. And if you're worried about how things like inflation and interest rates will affect your retirement nest egg, why don't you use Beacon Capital Management's free retirement savings calculator? It's fast, it's free, and you'll get a quick answer and get your results right away. Just visit askbeaconnow.com to get started. And then if you decide you need to do a deeper dive with the people at Beacon, get some advice from them, here's the number, 615-488-9303. You know, wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on the right path? Beacon can provide that reassurance. It starts with a phone call to that number, 615-488-9303. You have nothing to lose in the whole process except for the worry. So if you want to replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path, that number again is 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away. Learn more at askbeaconnow.com. Well, let's head into the swamp. We got a lot of ground to cover there today. 37 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair. And let's start out with some more talk about TikTok. Listen, this decision yesterday by the House, which, by the way, was bipartisan nature, widely bipartisan, to potentially ban TikTok if they don't want to divest, out of concerns for the fact that the information that is on many Americans' phones, 170 million Americans now on TikTok, it sits on a server in China where it can be accessed by the Chinese Communist Party. And they believe there are national security concerns, passed the House with wide support. Now, I told you yesterday, I was really struggling. You know, I as somebody who cares deeply about the First Amendment, you know, you can't do what I do for a living and not really love the First Amendment. But I do also have some concerns about how the Chinese government could use this to pollute the minds of our young people, but also to try to have a tremendous amount of influence over the coming election. And I have concerns about that. So, I'm sort of on the bubble about which way to go, but I found some compelling arguments, and again, it's informing my thinking quite a bit. And as is often the case, it comes from Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. Here's his explanation about why he is against trying to take up this matter. He's against this movement against TikTok that apparently will be decided in the United States Senate.
I don't think it's a question of whether the allegations are true or false. I think when you're alleged of a crime, you have to be convicted of it. So you can't really take someone's property in our country without a conviction. That's in the Fifth Amendment. You have to have due process to take someone's company from them or force them to sell. But even beyond the Fifth Amendment, the First Amendment says that those 180 million Americans who express themselves on the platform have a right as well. There's already been a preliminary decision by a federal district judge in Montana that tried to ban this. There were two decisions under Donald Trump when he tried to ban this. They've all been found unconstitutional. And the thing is we can like or dislike TikTok. I've actually never looked at TikTok. But the thing is using it or not using it, whether you own it or not own it, really has to be according to the law.
So I want you to hear with the FBI. So in terms of banning it, I think national security should trump that. And it being that we're finding out that Beijing is designing this algorithm to help divide America over the hot issues that you debate every day in Congress, from race to gender and all these other things, knowing that it's been around since 2016, Gordon Chang came out and says it's like allowing 170 million spy balloons over America. And here's what the FBI director said yesterday.
I have that right here.
That kind of influence operation, or the different kinds of influence operations you're describing, are extraordinarily difficult to detect, which is part of what makes the national security concerns represented by TikTok so significant. Americans need to ask themselves whether they want to give the Chinese government the ability to control access to their data.
Well, I mean, this is the debate we're having in America right now, and so it's going to get interesting as we go forward, I think, and we'll watch it. The chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee is he's a Democrat by the name of Mark Warner. He says that they will take it up. He hopes to take it up quickly, but I'm not so sure Schumer's on board. But here's what Mark Warner had to say about that.
That overwhelming vote, I hope, will allow us to move quickly in the Senate.
There are some who want to move in the Senate, and there are some who are going to go slow, so we'll continue to watch that very, very closely. Big brouhaha in the swamp after we had Chuck Schumer, the Democrat majority leader of the Senate, saying that Israel needs to have new elections and that he has lost his confidence in Benjamin Netanyahu. This is pretty amazing stuff.
I also believe Prime Minister Netanyahu has lost his way by allowing his political survival to take the precedence over the best interests of Israel. At this critical juncture, I believe a new election is the only way to allow for a healthy and open decision-making process about the future of Israel.
Who is Chuck Schumer to tell the nation of Israel that it needs to hold elections and that they need to chunk their prime minister? Who in the hell does he think he is? I mean, it's not his position to do that. It's like, really, Chuck, that's a lot of gall. See, Democrats are worried because a lot of young people, I think mistakenly, are finding themselves in a lot of sympathy for the Palestinian plight, which, the Palestinians have it rough, but I mean, they have it rough because of their association with Hamas. That's the problem. But one way or the other, they're afraid they're going to lose a lot of votes in the upcoming elections, and Democrats are going to lose badly. So that's why he's calling for Benjamin Netanyahu to step down and them to have another election, because they want somebody who will actually negotiate peace. And I say the Israelis have every right to do what they're doing. They didn't start it, but they're sure as hell going to finish it. Speaker Mike Johnson was a little surprised and not happy with Chuck Schumer for his statement.
We want to speak very clearly and concisely to say that this is not only highly inappropriate, it's just plain wrong for an American leader to play such a divisive role in Israeli politics while our closest ally in the region is in an existential battle for its very survival.
I could not agree more, and Chuck Schumer needs to be quiet. This is not up to him, but again, he's looking out for the elections in this country by asking for there to be a new election in Israel. Not appropriate, way out of line for Chuck Schumer, if you ask me. Also from the swamp today, there was this exchange between Senator John Cornyn of Texas and Xavier Becerra about the situation on the border.
And there have been about 400,000 of these unaccompanied children that have come to the United States during President Biden's term of office. Can you tell us where they are now?
We can give you information on the vetting process and
no, I ask you, do you know where they are now?
As I said to you, we can tell you who the vetted sponsors were that received
That's
these
not
kids.
what I asked you.
I know. And, they don't know where these kids are. One of the things we're going to look back at this time and regret is we're going to have many regrets about what happened at the border, and I think they're going to last for decades and decades to come. But one of the things that we're going to regret is what has happened to these children, that we have not followed up. We don't know where they are. We don't know what they're involved with. There's horrible opportunities for the people who want to human traffic these children. They since they don't know where any of these kids are, they are very susceptible to getting involved in some form of human trafficking, which is a blight, really just a disgusting thing. But it's going on, ladies and gentlemen. It goes on, and they need to get a handle on that. And I don't know how you do that now. The numbers of people who've come across are so overwhelming. I don't know how you fix that problem. All right. Other stuff real quick from the swamp. I was a little surprised by this. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson told Republican senators yesterday to expect the House to send them legislation to help Ukraine, but cautioned that what comes out of the House will look substantially different than a $95 billion foreign aid package that the Senate passed last month. This from thehill.com. Johnson tried to reassure frustrated GOP senators who asked him about funding for Ukraine during a question and answer session at the annual Senate Republican Retreat, which was held at the Library of Congress. Johnson told senators that the House will send a Ukraine aid package to the Senate, but floated the idea of making it a loan or lend-lease program so U.S. taxpayers would not be shelling out tens of billions of dollars without any expectation of getting a return. This according to senators who participated in the discussion. He also talked about including something similar to the REPO, R-E-P-O, for Ukrainians Act, sponsored by Representative Michael McCall of Texas, which would authorize the confiscation of Russian sovereign assets and deposits the proceeds of liquidated property into a Ukrainian support fund. Notably, Johnson did not say whether such a Ukraine aid package would include tough border security reforms, which is something that they wanted, but it's not mentioned in any of this reporting. And then the House Oversight Committee has launched a government-wide investigation into Chinese meddling operations in the U.S., including election influence, espionage, ties to drug manufacturing, and corporate security. This is Chair James Comer, Republican, Kentucky, sent letters to 9 Biden administration agencies to investigate the resources being used to combat undue Chinese influence in America. Without firing a single bullet, the Chinese Communist Party is waging war against the U.S. by targeting, influencing, and infiltrating every economic sector and community of America. Comer wrote in a statement Thursday, "We know that this coordinated influence and infiltration campaign by the CCP threatens U.S. military readiness, the technology sector, financial markets, agriculture, industry, education systems, and intellectual property. The lives and security of all Americans are affected." And he's right about this. We have been asleep at the wheel. We've been asleep at the switch while China has slowly but surely, and I think using TikTok and other resources, they have infiltrated our country. They are infiltrating every step of the, they spend inordinate resources trying to find the weaknesses in our energy grid and all kinds of manufacturing plants, and they may even have a back door into the very cranes that we use at our shipping borders, our shipping ports in this country. Those massive cranes they use to load and unload, most of them made in China. And there's some speculation that the Chinese built into the system a back door so they can shut those suckers down. And by doing that, if they shut it down, it would absolutely cripple the economy of America. And I think, and when they find the weaknesses, they don't exploit them. They just make a notation for future reference. When the day comes, when I think they go after Taiwan, they will simultaneously launch a cyber warfare attack against the United States, and it's not going to be pretty. And I think that we are right to be looking at China very closely, very, very closely. They are not, they make a lot of money off us, and we are codependent on their economy as well. But at the end of the day, they are not our friends. And if push comes to shove, and it may well come to shove over the Taiwan Straits, we need to understand what is likely to happen to us. It will be a very bad day in America. 50 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. With all the rain we have had, we're going to have some more rain tonight, it sounds like. So you need to be careful and look around your house to see if you got any waterproofing issues. Do you have standing water in your crawl space? Do you have wet basement walls, musty odor, or a floor joist with wood rot? These are all signs. Cracks in basement floors, hardwood floors that are cupping. You see, if you have any of these things, your house may be trying to tell you something, that you have a moisture issue, you have a waterproofing issue, and you need to call the folks at United Structural Systems. More than 25,000 satisfied residential customers. They will come out to your house. They're not out to upsell you. They're not out to sell you something you don't need. What they're going to do is they're going to look at your situation. They're going to come to some conclusions and give you your best advice. And then I promise you they will get after it if you say go. And you won't have to pay a penny until the job is done and you are completely satisfied. A USS, they guarantee their best, serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, online at USSTN.com. That's USSTN.com. For more information with this great company that will solve your problems, just call them at 615-488-7855.
U.S. Senate leader Chuck Schumer has called for Israel to hold new elections. We'll tell you why. A 30-day delay now being requested by the Manhattan DA in the case against Donald Trump. And the search continues here in Nashville for a missing Missouri college student. We'll have those stories and more coming up at 4 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Jay Harper. And today for Mac Maury, then Chris Weber's in the control room today. I'm Brian Wilson. Let's take a look at the markets. Dow Jones Industrial down 137. The S&P is down 14. The NASDAQ is down 50 today. And they all went down. All screens are red after a very hot inflation report came in this morning. Let's find out more about that from Ty Draper over at Beacon Capital Management. Good afternoon, Ty.
Yeah. Hey, Brian, a hotter than expected PPI report really complicated the Fed's decision for an upcoming rate cuts. And PPI is important because it's a leading indicator of inflation, kind of forecasting higher costs early in the supply chain. And PPI increased by 0.6, which was basically double what they had predicted. And the highest increase came in the energy sector, which jumped 4.4%. And that's been reflected in fuel prices. And this data is being really watched closely as the Fed goes into its meeting next week.
All right. Thank you, Ty. To learn more about all the things that Ty and John Maxon and all the good guys over at Beacon Capital Management can do to help you get ready for retirement, make sure you're making the right decisions, just go to askbeaconnow.com. It is 58 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock.
Good afternoon. It's 4 p.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got increasing clouds, 78 degrees, kind of windy out there. We'll have your traffic and a complete forecast for you here in just a few. Senate leader Chuck Schumer has called for Israel to hold new elections. The highest-ranking elected Jewish official in the U.S. is highly critical of Prime Minister Netanyahu, saying he's an obstacle to peace and has lost his way as Israel's war with Hamas grows into a deeper humanitarian crisis in Gaza. ABC's chief national correspondent Matt Gutman is in Jerusalem.
What Israel is now understanding or starting to understand is that it risks becoming a pariah state. I spoke with a senior Israeli official who said that we need two things to win this war. We need ammunition, and we need time, and we need legitimacy. And right now, Israel is losing legitimacy.
The Manhattan District Attorney's Office sent in a request today asking the judge for a 30-day adjournment of its case against Donald Trump as they work through a mountain of evidence that was just released by federal officials, putting all 4 ongoing possible criminal trials in limbo for the former president.
All 4 criminal prosecutions are somewhat up in the air. We're waiting for the judge in Manhattan to rule on this request by prosecutors for an adjournment. The district attorney, Fani Willis, in Georgia, we're waiting on a decision to see whether she's going to be disqualified from that case. And the U.S. Supreme Court has a pending decision on presidential immunity that will impact the 2 federal cases over January 6th and classified documents.
That's ABC's Aaron Katursky reporting. With violence ongoing in Haiti, White House National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby today was asked about U.S. involvement in helping the country regain peace.
The situation on the ground is still not safe, not tenable for the Haitian people. We recognize that. Our international partners recognize that. And Haitian leaders recognize that. So there's been some good progress on the diplomatic front, certainly good progress from the United States on the economic support front.
The search continues here in Nashville for missing college student Riley Strain after his disappearance while on a fraternity trip here in the city nearly a week ago. Strain, 22 years of age, a University of Missouri student, went missing after being asked to leave Luke Bryan's Broadway bar on March 8th. Because he appeared highly intoxicated. He was officially reported missing the very next day. Metro Nashville police conducted a briefing on the young man's disappearance a couple of hours ago. Nashville Police Sergeant Robert Nielsen emphasized that currently no foul play is suspected.
This is strictly a missing person investigation at this point. Obviously, those things can always change. We just don't know. But right now, all of our resources are dedicated towards finding him. We're not conducting a criminal investigation of any type.
Nielsen also stated that Mr. Strain's phone last pinged from a cell tower near Top Golf across the Cumberland River. However, that ping has a 2-mile radius, and unfortunately, it does not give authorities a more specific location where the young man may be located. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Good afternoon. 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. You're listening to The Drive on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy. We're so glad that you're with us out here. I have 78 degrees in bucolic Watertown, and listen to this. What's the temperature in Nashville right now, Chris?
80 degrees.
Oh, man. We haven't had that in a while. Good stuff. Let's go to some money news. News about, things going on in the world that impact your pocketbook. I'm telling you right now, it's not good. How's this Bidenflation working out for you? I don't think it's working out too good. There have been a couple of really sort of concerning reports that have come out this week that show just how stubborn inflation is. Consumer and wholesale prices no longer longer-term expectations. Reports this week served up multiple reminders that inflation isn't going away anytime soon. Data across the board showed pressures increasing at a faster than expected pace, causing concern that inflation could be more durable than policymakers had anticipated. Now, the bad news began on Monday when a New York Federal Reserve survey showed the consumer expectations over the longer term had accelerated. And then today, this was the one that really shook them up. The latest jolt on inflation came when the labor market reported that Producer Price Index, a forward-looking measure of pipeline inflation at the wholesale level, showed a 0.6% increase in February. That's double what they had expected. And that means that the year-to-year, 12-month, was 1.6%. Now, I know that's just a gobbledygook for a lot of you, but what it really means is inflation is not coming down. It's not coming down. And what does that mean? It means that they're not going to be able to lower interest rates anytime soon. Not good news for the Biden administration. It doesn't look like that's going to be possible. Let's see here from Washington Examiner. The biggest question for many economists heading into 2024 was when would the Fed begin cutting rates? Now, that's something you and I care about. Investors had been hoping it would happen soon, as lower rates can help spur investment, help get the economy moving again. But you know what? It's not happening. There, at the end of last year, there was an optimistic sentiment on Wall Street that the slashing of interest rates would happen as soon as March, where we are now, and that 2024 would be marked by some 6 downward rate revisions so that we'd be back, pretty close to where we were when we get to the end of the year election time. Now, that's what they were hoping. That's not happening. The anticipated pivot date has been slowly moving further back as the year progresses, and the expectation now, given higher inflation readings, is that it will not happen for months. We'd all like to see lower interest rates. It would help the housing industry. It would really help people who are having to pay the really, really high interest rates on credit cards right now. But, it's not going to happen any time soon. Here's a story from PJ Media. Bidenflation is even worse than you think. Doesn't take a master's degree in economics to understand that prices are up in every sector of the economy. The economy under Joe Biden is a nickel and diming us at every turn. The federal government, they talk about the Consumer Price Index, the PPI, which came out today, and it just looks like food prices, listen to this, have increased by 20% under Biden. That's right, 20% for the cost of food. Did you get a 20% increase in pay? I don't think you did. Energy prices have increased by almost 30%. Did you get a 30% increase in pay? No, then you're behind. You're having to pay more and you're not making enough to keep up with it. Maybe you got a raise, but it ain't enough. Americans have noticed these differences. There's a recent poll out that shows that 84% of American adults are concerned about inflation, 51% very concerned, 33% somewhat concerned. It's the 25th consecutive month that over 80% of people express concern about inflation. It went to 9.1, and yes, it came down, but it just won't go to where they want it, which is 2%. We're still at about 4%. It's been hovering somewhere around 4% for some time now. and credit card debt is skyrocketing. I mean, all of this is very, very bad news for the Biden administration in an election year. They really, let me tell you something. I think that interest rates may come down later this year, but I'm not sure that the economic data justifies it. In other words, I would like to see lower interest rates like everybody. We all want lower interest rates. But the question is it the right thing to do for the overall economy? Do the leading economic indicators suggest that it is time to lower interest rates? Or, and this is the real question, will they do it for political reasons? If it goes down and the economic data do not support such a lowering of interest rates, you know exactly what's going on as we head into the election season. Gas prices reached a 4-month high as the warmer weather gets drivers back on the road. Demand is flooding back at a time when refineries are having unprecedented challenges. There have been several things that have happened that have caused some refineries to shut down. It's also the time of year where they have to shut down some of the refineries to switch over from wintertime gas to summertime blends, which are more expensive. Anyway, let's see. As of Tuesday, so this is a little dated, the national average price for regular gasoline is sitting at $3.39 a gallon. That's the latest information from AAA, $3.39 a gallon. However, prices are still below the level they set at a year ago, which is $3.47. Where are we locally, Chris? I ask you to check on that for me.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of prices in the upper twos, in the 290s, and I've actually seen some today that have just crept over the $3 mark, like $3.19 in some areas. But I'd say overall we're right around the $3 mark as far as an average in the Middle Tennessee area.
All right, well, we're doing a little better than the national average, but that is often the case. Remember, gasoline prices are impacted by many things other than the cost of fuel, depending on like how many taxes they put on top of the cost of gasoline. So,
Brian, yesterday I was in the Memphis area, and all of the gas there was about $3.50 a gallon.
Really?
Yeah. I'm like, what's that all about?
I have no idea.
Yeah, crazy.
It is such a weird thing where you be in some areas and it's lower, and you go to the next town and it's higher. I've never quite understood the whole thing, but one way or the other, I guess right now it probably depends on where you're getting your fuel, and some of these refineries that are shut down right now may be impacting regionally where this gasoline, how much this gasoline costs, because some people are really struggling because of the shut down refineries. One of them been shut down since February, so that may be part of it. Here's another thing. Are you paying more for insurance? I read something yesterday where insurance has gone up on your car 45% since Joe Biden took office. 45%. But listen to this. Oh, man, this is going to make you mad. If you're in your car right now, you need to know your car is probably spying on you if it's a newer car. Drivers who own cars from top manufacturers such as General Motors, Ford, and Honda are experiencing a rise as high as 50% of their auto insurance rates. Unbeknownst to the car owners, these companies have been transmitting driver behavior data directly to insurance issuers, according to a new report. For instance, Seattle businessman Ken Dahl, 65 years old, found himself caught in this predicament when his auto insurance costs skyrocketed by 21% last year. The New York Times reported the significant increase can be traced to the data collected from GM's OnStar smart driver system in his Chevy Bolt, which monitors drivers' behavior. Your car is spying on you. I was taken aback when my insurance agent linked the hike in rates to the detailed analytics gathered on my driving. It felt like a betrayal. They're taking information that I didn't realize was going to be shared and screwing with our insurance. LexisNexis, a data analytics firm, produced a 258-page dossier spanning 6 months of the driving activities for Mr. Dahl and his wife. A 258-page dossier. The report logged each trip's start and end, the mileage covered, probed into speed fluctuations, abrupt stops, and rapid accelerations. One trip in June particularly stood out within the report. It was an 18-minute drive covering 7.33 miles that was marred by 2 instances of rapid acceleration and a pair of sudden braking incidents. Though the OnStar smart driver system details such as total miles and driving conduct are recorded, contributed to the profile compiled by Nexus Lexus, the revelation has alerted drivers to privacy implications and financial repercussions. I don't like the fact. I mean, we talk about our information on our phones are now sitting on a server in communist China, but really, I mean, we're being spied on right here at home by companies like General Motors, Ford, and Honda. I don't like it. You know what, though? I'll tell you what, this is going to backfire. Now that this has come out, and, they're selling this data, and the insurance companies are then, justifying. I mean, okay, look, let me just say. Let's say you're driving a GM car, right? You're going to work or you're coming home this afternoon. Traffic may not allow you to run it, but I'm promising you, as soon as you get some open highway, you and the cars around you are going to be driving what? Not 70 miles an hour. You're going to be driving 80 miles an hour, right? You are. I know it. I mean, you can deny it, but I've been out there. I know what you're doing. Maybe I've done it as well. If you're driving 80 miles an hour and that gets reported back to your insurance company, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get hit with higher insurance rates. That's why insurance is going up, which means that tonight, over dinner, I think we're making pizza in the pizza oven tonight, we will have to have a very serious conversation with Cabana Wife.
Better watch it.
About her drive.
Tread lightly.
She, if you ever see a Ford Edge, an ST, by the way, it's a hot little car, but believe it or not, it's this car is a sleeper. This SUV she has, it's a sleeper, man. It's a hot car. And if you see a black one, it's got a French Bulldog sticker on the back window, just get out of the way. Get out of her way, because she's coming through. We're going to have a conversation. I mean, they're watching you every step of the way these days. And I don't know if there's a way to turn it off or not, but I'm going to be going through my Ford, my F-150, and pretty quickly trying to figure out if there's some way to turn off that.
Yeah, you should be able to opt out of it.
Yeah, but you know what it says then? You lose certain functions that you've come to count on.
That's true.
And so, you have to decide whether or not you want to do that. I don't use, for example, the navigation that's built into I use Waze because I want to know where the popo are, but that's just me. But listen, I'm telling you, this is something that I think most Americans don't know and are going to be pretty upset about when their insurance starts to go up. Just remember, that car you drive is spying on you. 21 past the hour now, 4 o'clock.
Discussion on Capitol Hill continues over the proposed ban of the TikTok app in the U.S., and we'll have today's closing money news. Those stories at 4:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 26 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air on this beautiful day. It is a glorious 80 degrees in Nashville. It is 80. Well, it's probably more than that now, isn't it? What do you got?
It still shows 80.
I got 80 degrees here in bucolic Watertown as well. So, I mean, a nice night. Going to be a lovely evening. However, get ready for some change in the weather overnight. Maybe some severe thunderstorms coming through overnight. It's a good night to take down the umbrella. I mean, I think maybe some people have put up the umbrella.
Oh, I'm sure some have, yeah.
And so bring it down
Yep.
and pull in the cushions and lock everything down because I think we're going to have some wind and rain and some thunderstorms. Now, let's see. I want to remind you that coming up at 5:05, not that far from now, we'll be doing our interview with Governor Bill Lee. We haven't had Governor Lee on in quite a while, so we're looking forward to that and a lot of things to talk to him about. And then I found this story while we're waiting to get there. Decluttering your life can save your mental health. Are you someone who has a place for everything and everything in your place, Chris?
Mostly, yes.
I get the impression you're that guy. And
Thanks,
I wish I was better. I'm not the worst you've ever seen, but well, I think you can look behind me here on Super Talk TV and see I do collect a few things.
Yeah, just a few here and there.
Yeah. Well, if they say that if you have a lot of clutter in your life, then it impacts your mental health, and eliminating clutter will improve your mental health. You know, I say I'm going to do this all the time, but I really am I'm going to have to go through my studio because I've got a lot of stuff that I've collected over the years, mini guitars, amplifiers. I mean, I got more recording studio stuff for my sort of my hobby. It's been collected, legitimately over, some probably 30 years or so, 30 or 40 years. But, I hold on to that stuff. And and one of the things say, if you've got too much clutter in your life, it's when you have to buy something that you already have, but you don't know where it is.
Yep.
That's a bad sign.
Mm-hmm.
And they say that it can cost you financially just spending. If you spend 5% of your time looking for stuff because you don't know where you put it, well, that's basically, they ask the question, what's 5% of your income? And that's what clutter is costing you. 5% of your time, 5% of your income. Multiple studies show that our living space is a psychological home, and you have to make sure that it's a place of comfort and security. I find comfort in my stuff, though.
Well, I guess it's all right for you then, maybe.
Well, people say you got to do that if you want to get rid of clutter, you got to do that KonMari thing. This is Marie Kondo. She has this thing where she says, if you hold on to something and it brings you joy, then you keep it. If you hold something near and dear to you and meditate for just a moment and it brings you no joy, you need to chunk it. You just need to get rid of it.
Yeah. Good luck with that. You know what my thing is? I tend to I don't like to get rid of boxes, like the packaging that electronics come in. I want to keep it just in case I ever want to get rid of it. I can put it back in the box and, sell it on to the next person.
You've got a garage full of empty boxes.
I've got this cabinet that's got all these boxes and stuff in it. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah.
Probably shouldn't do that. But.
Well, they say it's a 100% preventable drain on your well-being if you just get rid of your clutter. Now this is what Cabana Wife is going to talk to me about tonight.
Yeah.
I'm going to want to talk to her about her car spying on her and she needs to slow down. And she's going to say, let's talk about clutter, Brian. Let's talk about clutter and your mental health.
Sounds like a fun conversation.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting night over pizza. It's 30 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock. Time for the news.
Good afternoon. It's 4:30. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got 78 degrees with some increasing clouds and wind on Music Row. We've hit 80 degrees in other parts here of Middle Tennessee. You'll have your forecast and the latest traffic report in just a moment. Following this week's passage of a House bill compelling TikTok's Chinese parent company ByteDance to sell off the app or face a ban from U.S. app stores and services, Senate members are debating the bill's future as they prepare to bring it to the floor. Speaking to reporters inside the Capitol Hill on the rotunda there today, North Carolina Republican Senator Tom Tillis says that Americans need to understand lawmakers have their best interest when considering this kind of legislation.
This isn't about shutting down TikTok. This is about making sure that that very information that many of them are using to interact on it could be shared with the Chinese Communist Party. They should view this as a threat. Rather that the threat of their information being abused by the Chinese Communist Party should be their concern.
Now, with today's closing money news, here's Daria Albinger.
From ABC News, Wall Street now. What goes up eventually comes down. The Dow fell 138 points, and NASDAQ gave up 49, and the S&P closed down 15. A mixed batch of economic reports pushed the markets lower. One showed a slight rise in wholesale prices last month. Former Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin is putting together an investor group to buy TikTok now that the House passed a bill which would ban the popular video app in the U.S. if its China-based owner doesn't sell its stake. Mnuchin told CNBC TikTok should be owned by a U.S. business and that Beijing would never allow an American company to own something similar in China. He isn't saying who might be in the group. President Biden renewing his opposition to the planned sale of U.S. steel to Japan's Nippon Steel, saying the U.S. needs strong American steel companies powered by American steel workers. He's already expressed worries about what the sale could mean for union workers, supply chains, and national security.
That is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
You know, one thing that really makes Genesis Diamonds stand out from other jewelry stores, the education you get when you go there. See, these are not clerks behind the counter. They are seasoned pros. They know everything there is to know about diamonds. And they will take the time to teach you in a way that is transparent, informative, useful. They even teach you how to buy like a dealer buys. They will show you the inside secrets of the diamond industry. They will show you how diamonds are priced and graded on the world market. And you can maximize your budget with this knowledge. They will also teach you about lab-grown diamonds and how you need to be very, very careful with where and when and how you buy them. All this is done in a relaxed, no pressure, no expectations kind of atmosphere. And they realize that most guys don't know much about diamonds, so they're committed to teaching you, not selling you. When the time comes, you'll know where to go. They will let you see 10, 15, 20 diamonds in your price range side by side so you can make an intelligent decision. So I am telling you, if you're a diamond shopping right now, this is the place to go. It's a no-brainer. The education you want, the selection you need, the price you deserve, zero risk, zero pressure. Genesis Diamonds, voted the best jewelry store and best place to buy an engagement ring 10 years in a row. Green Hills and Cool Springs. It is 38 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock. A reminder, 5:05 today, Governor Bill Lee will join us here on The Drive. Hope that you'll stick around for that. We want to bring you all that latest information. And this just in, the judge has denied former President Trump's request to dismiss the charges in the classified documents case. However, Trump's lawyer said the case should be thrown out because of the Presidential Records Act. Prosecutors said that the law only applies to personal records, not classified national secrets. There is some, however, maybe a window of good news in all of this, and the judge said that she might consider his request more favorably down the pike. But right now, the classified documents case will go forward. We're also waiting for some kind of decision. I think it's supposed to come out of Georgia today from Judge McAfee regarding whether or not Fannie Willis and Nathan Wade will be taken off of the case that's again leveled against Trump in that particular jurisdiction. That has not yet come down, but we are waiting for that information. Time to look at some local news while we can. I'm very, again, saddened to tell you that they have not found this 22-year-old college student who's been missing since, well, it's going to be almost a week. Tomorrow will be 1 week that Riley Strain has been missing. Such a mystery here. Boats are searching the Cumberland River, and they're not having any luck. They're going along the shorelines, looking through all the brush. His phone was last tracked near Public Square along the Cumberland River. But, this pinging is rather inexact. It gives you an area, but it could be, it's a rather large area when you look at the last location. And that may not be the last location where he was. It's just with the last location where his phone pinged a cell phone tower, but they're certainly looking in that area very closely. Again, the sad part of this situation is every day they get new leads and go down different avenues. A family friend, Chris Dingman, said, this according to WSMV, we're going to get there, but it also happens to open up more doors about what could have possibly happened. I mean, one of the things that was being looked at by law enforcement authorities was the fact that apparently some homeless people have said that they saw him down near the river. So they're looking at that. Maybe this is connected, maybe it's not. I'll just raise it because number one, I find it an interesting story. Number two, the timing looks pretty interesting as well. From Channel 5, Metro Police need help finding a man they said is targeting tourists on Lower Broadway. The man Central Precinct detectives are looking for is 32-year-old Joshua Ray Cloyd, Cloyd. He's wanted for 9 outstanding warrants. Allegedly, he victimizes intoxicated people on Lower Broadway, stealing their phones, their wallets, and their credit cards. Police said last November a victim had his iPhone 14 stolen, and on the same day, his Cash App transferred money to an account registered to Cloyd. The money was used to buy a hotel room in Madison. Another victim reported his phone and credit cards were taken from his back pocket in January. He tracked his stolen phone to a different hotel in Madison, and his credit cards were used as ATM and gas stations in the same area. Facing fraud charges on top of theft. How does someone have 9 outstanding warrants? And again, one wonders, is this a coincidence that they're just looking for this guy now, or does it somehow have some relevance to, or possibly have some relevance to, the Riley Strain investigation? I don't know, but I certainly, it jumped out at me. This town's getting mean. It's getting really, really mean at times. It really concerns me. A bystander, just somebody just standing along, minding their own business, was critically injured as shots were fired during a car chase along Antioch Pike Wednesday night. Happened around the corner of Antioch Pike, Richards Road near Haywood Lane around 9:30. Metro officer responded to the scene, reported one vehicle was chasing another down Antioch Pike with the lead vehicle pulled into the parking lot and shots were fired. The victim was waiting inside a white Chevy Camaro for food at a food truck. I mean, you're just minding your own business and waiting for some food to come out of the food truck. And you're struck in the head by gunfire from 2 knuckleheads who are shooting at each other in a high-speed chase. He was rushed to Vanderbilt, where he's listed in critical condition. The vehicle was being chased, continued on Richard Road, where it reportedly stopped. No additional information is available. But boy, I'm telling you, this kind of stuff, this nonsense, has got to come to a halt. And how do you stop it? Well, I would say there are 2 things that we need to really buckle down on in Nashville. Number one is we need to support our police. We are shorthanded on police. I don't care what they say. They're shorthanded. They are shorthanded. They're shorthanded. We don't have enough police on the beat. And the other thing is, if we get people arrested, we need to find a way, if they are violent criminals, to keep them behind bars until they're adjudicated. And when they're adjudicated, we need to put them behind bars for a long, long time. We need to get serious about prosecuting violent crime in Nashville. And whatever that takes. It is, we're coming up very closely. I think 27th of March is the 1-year anniversary of the shooting at the Covenant School. 6 people, of course, lost their lives. There'll be a number of things that are going to be happening as a result of this commemorations. There's some talk about maybe 13,000 people coming together to create a human chain. I still think it's remarkable to me that it's been almost a year and we still do not know the motivation of the shooter, as these manifestos and diaries are tied up in all kinds of legal wrangling. And I haven't heard a thing about that of late. I wonder where that is. But one way or the other, it's shocking that we don't know by now. We in this community deserve to know more. I mean, the whole state legislature tried to get together and do something to make the situation better, but it's hard to do something when you don't know what the motivation was. You don't know what was going on behind the scenes. And I still think there's something going on there. I think that when that information, if it ever comes out, is going to be pretty eye-opening. We'll see what happens. But nothing has happened yet. Again, the anniversary, the commemoration will be on March 27th. Let's see. Very quickly, a couple of things here. The Tennessee Senate passed a bill blocking local governments from passing police reform on traffic stop policies. I mean, this is getting to the point where there are some communities where they try to say to police, don't make as many traffic stops. And so the Tennessee Senate is trying to get in there and say, no, if a traffic stop is warranted, make the traffic stop. Bill passed on the floor March 7th over the objection of Tyree Nichols' parents, who said they were misled by the bill's House sponsor about when the House would vote on the bill. Let's see. The bill passed with 26 yes votes and 6 no votes along party lines, with all Memphis and Nashville Democrats voting against it. We've come so far in this country when it comes to racial equality and trying to improve the relationships between police and citizens, says Senator London Lamar, a Memphis Democrat. If you talk to me, I want to solve violent crime in Memphis more than anybody else. Alongside my colleagues from this country, we love Memphis. We love your counties too. But the fact of the matter is it does not reduce crime. I disagree. When you enforce the law, this was the lesson of Rudy Giuliani's New York. Lawless community. They started enforcing things like, I don't know, what do you call it? Crossing the street in the middle,
jaywalking.
Jaywalking. Thank you. That's the term. Yeah, they started in doing things like that and started enforcing every law. And you know what they found out? When law enforcement enforced the law, crime went down. Don't stop the police from doing their jobs. Don't handcuff the police, and that's what this bill is about, saying you should not handcuff police. You should not tell them to reduce the number of traffic stops they make. If it makes sense, if somebody's violating the law, get in there and do your job, police officers. That's what I would say. And again, we'll see where that goes. And then there's another bill floating around the state legislature. This is sort of interesting. It has to do with those party buses and, the woo girls who are always on the party buses. The new Tennessee House bill would insulate party vehicle owners from local regulators seeking to slash the number of permitted vehicles on city streets. Representative Dan Howell, Republican of Cleveland, backing the legislation, filing an amendment this week to HB 2642, originally filed by the majority leader of the House, William Lamberth. Should the bill ultimately pass, local governments would be barred from refusing to renew previously issued entertainment vehicle permits unless the permits went unused for 6 months. Permits could only be revoked after an administrative hearing showing violations of state or local rules, which seems fair to me. If they're playing by the rules and you have previously given them the right to run a business, should you then have the ability to just unilaterally, because you wake up one day and decide you don't like them, to put somebody out of business? I think the party buses, we got way too many of them, I think, and it really does slow down traffic in downtown Nashville. But I'm telling you, it's not right to just decide we're going to cut in half, for example, the number of party buses that are in Nashville. That's not fair. You approved them. You allowed them to get into business. They've made an investment in their business. And now you say we're going to take away their license to operate. We'll watch that one as well. It is now 50 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Let me tell you about Johnny Fleeman, the owner of the Brass Lanterns and Legend Restaurants, now celebrating 35 years in Middle Tennessee and surrounding areas. To celebrate the 35 years, they want me to tell you about some of the things that they're doing. Some of the daily specials: chicken fingers with fries on Monday, $8.99. Slow-cooked prime rib and a side for $18.99 on Tuesday. Wednesday, choice sirloin with a side for only $8.99. This is Thursday, hamburger steak night, steak dinner for $8.99. You feature 3 pasta dinners on Sundays, all $9.99. Remember, for over 35 years, the Brass Lantern and Legend restaurants have given you good food made from scratch, delicious recipes at affordable prices. That's what they're all about. They want to remind you not to forget to pick up some of those delicious Johnny Fleeman products at your local grocery store. You're going to enjoy your next visit to the Brass Lantern and Legends restaurant nearest you. Coming up in just a few moments, our interview with Governor Bill Lee, right after the news with Jay Harper. So stay right where you are. 59 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk.
Good evening. It is 5 p.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We've got some wind, a mix of clouds and sun. We're actually back up to a degree here to 79 degrees on Music Row. We'll have traffic and weather in just a few minutes. Senate Leader Chuck Schumer has called for Israel to hold new elections. The highest-ranking elected Jewish official in the U.S. is highly critical of Prime Minister Netanyahu, who is saying that he's an obstacle to peace. And he says that Netanyahu has lost his way. That's a quote. As Israel's war with Hamas grows into a deeper humanitarian crisis in Gaza, ABC's Matt Gutman is in Jerusalem.
What Israel is now understanding or starting to understand is that it risks becoming a pariah state. I spoke with a senior Israeli official who said that we need two things to win this war. We need ammunition, and we need time, and we need legitimacy. And right now, Israel is losing legitimacy.
The Manhattan District Attorney's Office sent in a request today asking the judge for a 30-day adjournment of its case against Donald Trump as they work through a mountain of evidence that was just released by federal officials, putting all four ongoing possible criminal trials in limbo for the former president.
All four criminal prosecutions are somewhat up in the air. We're waiting for the judge in Manhattan to rule on this request by prosecutors for an adjournment. The district attorney, Fani Willis, in Georgia, we're waiting on a decision to see whether she's going to be disqualified from that case. And the U.S. Supreme Court has a pending decision on presidential immunity that will impact the two federal cases over January 6th and classified documents.
That's ABC's Aaron Katursky reporting. With violence ongoing in Haiti, White House National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby today was asked about U.S. involvement in helping the country regain peace.
The situation on the ground is still not safe, not tenable for the Haitian people. We recognize that. Our international partners recognize that. And Haitian leaders recognize that. So there's been some good progress on the diplomatic front, certainly good progress from the United States on the economic support front.
Fox 17 here in Nashville is reporting the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation is looking into allegations that a Rutherford County teacher took inappropriate photos of himself inside a school. According to a spokesperson with the district, the TBI is investigating teacher John Duncan. He teaches personal finance and history at Daniel McKee Alternative School. The district says he's been suspended without pay pending the outcome of the investigation. They also say that's standard procedure in cases like this. Duncan was reportedly hired at the school in August of last year. He previously worked at Stewart's Creek High School the previous school year. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather are on the way. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is 5 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and you're listening to The Drive on this 14th day of March. It is a beautiful day, spring day. I don't know about you, but overwhelmed with the blossoms of Bradford pear trees on my property today here. We are awaiting the governor to call in. We understand he is on his way to the phone. They may be running a moment or two behind. The governor's got a very busy schedule, and we're glad that he was able to get us in, but we are waiting that phone call. In the meantime, while we're waiting, I want to talk about one of the main topics that I'm going to talk to him about, and that is his school voucher plan, or as he calls it, the Universal School Choice Proposal. To give you a little background so that you'll understand some of the questioning here in a moment, we know that there are at least two different proposals floating around in the state legislature right now, one in the House and one in the Senate, and they are said to be vastly different and not exactly, I think, what the governor may have in mind. So we'll be asking him about that, and then some of the pushback that has come from local communities around who do not want the change. I think in a situation like this, change is very, very difficult, and there are a lot of people who don't want the change. So we'll ask him about that as well. It is also, we will be getting to we'll be almost to the 1-year anniversary of the Covenant school shooting. I'll ask for his thoughts on that. And then I want to get an update. One of the things I definitely want to ask him about is about what's going on in Blue Oval City. Remember, we have a lot of state money invested in the development of Blue Oval City for Ford, and part of that is that we know that Ford is pulling back on its electric car plans very seriously, and some indication they're not going to be building as many electric cars as they once had. We'll get some questions there about what's going on in Blue Oval City. So now at 7 minutes past the hour, still waiting on the governor to call in. We're told that will happen any moment. In fact, I think it may be happening just as we speak. Bear with us, everyone. Okay. And Chris is taking the call. And here we go. Hold it. And now, joining us on the Newsmaker Hotline is Governor Bill Lee. Governor Lee, thank you so much for joining us here on The Drive.
Hey, Brian. How you doing today?
We're doing very well. First of all, I want to say thank you for sending troops to the border of the state of Texas. I think it speaks remarkably of the young men and women who serve in our National Guard that they asked for 100 volunteers and they got 400 volunteers. Can you tell me exactly what they're doing down there and how those resources are being utilized by the state of Texas?
Well, first let me say I agree with you about the volunteers, and I was at a National Guard hangar just a couple weeks ago, the day before they deployed. And I got to speak to those volunteers and thank them. They were ready for this mission. They understood the importance of it. Just a few weeks before that, I had been to Texas with 14 governors. We met with Governor Abbott. We met with their state police and the officials that they laid out all the details of what they were facing. We all know the crisis that exists there and how, the national security issue that it is, the human trafficking and drug trafficking and sex trafficking. And it is an unspeakable crisis that has to be addressed. Federal government isn't addressing it. And Governor Abbott's made the decision he's going to on the border of Texas with Texas resources. So he asked for other states to help, and the volunteer state did. And we have sent troops. We'll send another wave of troops. We're under the guidance of Texas. Details about the whereabouts and exactly what troops are doing for security reasons, we don't release that publicly, but
all right.
Basically what we are doing is we've come alongside them and said, you tell us how it is that we can help you. And there are a number of ways that mission is executed, but primarily it's to provide security, make sure that the border is secure and keeps people out that shouldn't shouldn't be crossing.
Well, as a fellow born and raised in Texas, and now I'm in Tennessee, I tell you, I know the people there appreciate it. I want to move on to your universal school choice proposal, which is now wending its way through the state legislature. Some people call them school vouchers. There are different proposals, one in the House, one in the Senate, very different approaches. How do you feel about the chances of getting a bill that meets your goals? Will they actually be able to come up with a compromise? Obviously, it's probably going to go to a conference. You think you're going to get a bill that you can sign? Do you have confidence in that?
I'm really encouraged. I sure do. I think the primary thing that is encouraging to me is that people have come to believe that parents should have a choice, that the person that knows the best what's best for their kid is the parent of that kid. And that's what the premise of Education Freedom Scholarship Act is. It is to give a parent a wider choice as it relates to their kids' education. The House believes that. The Senate believes that. Our office believes that. We put it out back in November, which is much earlier than I have ever brought forth a piece of legislation, but prior to the session, because I knew there'd be a lot of stakeholders. There'd be a lot of people interested in this, and I wanted them to all have an opportunity to weigh into it, which is exactly what's happening. So the House has the basic premise of our desire at our office, but they have that, they've taken that basic premise and added to it, and they've come up with ideas that they think strengthen it, make it better, make it better for the entire educational outcomes for our kids. The Senate has done the same thing. They have ideas that are, but the basic premise of getting this is the same. It's that parents will have a choice at the end of the day.
Is there anything in there? I'm sorry. Is there anything in there that might be sort of a problem for you? Something that would really you would like to see not in this bill?
I think I think my hope is just that we expand choice to every family in the state. That's the primary purpose of me doing this. I like a lot of the proposals on both sides, and what I like most is that the House and Senate leadership are meeting. They're meeting about it. They are committed to finding a path forward. They're looking at the cost implications and the policy implications, but they're going to find a way forward. They always do. That's kind of how this process works, particularly when you have both Lieutenant Governor and the Speaker and leadership in both chambers committed to the idea. That's why I think this is going to happen.
Initiating change is always hard because, people don't like things that are different, things that are new. I love the approach, quite frankly, but I noticed that, as you call them, stakeholders, some of the stakeholders have had concerns. Wilson County, where I live, has aligned itself against the proposal. I know some of the other school boards around the state have real concerns. What would you say to those who disagree with your approach?
Well, I think the thing that I say most is that what matters most is the kids and the families, and the parents that have engaged in our education savings accounts to date, and we have them in Davidson, Shelby, Hamilton, and for those parents, 91% of them believe that their kids are having a better experience under that education savings account than they were having before. That's what matters most to me. Those are the stakeholders that I care about the most, is the parent of the kid that is choosing where their kid goes to school. 91% of them are happy. So that's number one. Number two, I think, you talk about change, and change is hard, but the status quo has got to be challenged. I mean, particularly when you've got, 30% of your kids can read at third grade level. Status quo has to be challenged. We need to find ways of doing things differently going forward. And the other thing is, this is not a matter of choosing between choice and public school systems. The vast majority of our kids are going to be in a public school. We've put almost $2 billion toward our public education system in the past few years, historic funding, historic teacher pay raises. We revamped the funding formula so that it works better for public schools. We're putting more money in that formula in this year's budget. So we don't have to choose. We can have a commitment to better public schools and at the same time offer parents choices. And honestly, what you're seeing happen across the country is, parents, Americans are really waking up to the idea that this is something that should be happening. I mean, Alabama just passed a universal school choice. Arkansas, Kentucky's moving one.
Oops, I'm afraid we have lost the governor. I'm wondering if we can reestablish that connection. He may not even realize that the connection is lost. We'll hold on for just a moment.
Hey, I'm back.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm glad that you're back.
No. I'm sorry, and I hope I don't lose you again. I think I was reeling off all the states in this country that have passed school choice initiatives, and you know what? Tennessee just doesn't need to be left behind. Our kids don't need to be left behind. So I'm excited about this. You can tell that as I talk about it. This is
a lot of passion there. There's no doubt. I got a couple other quick questions I want to get in before our time runs down. We're approaching, I think it's next week, the 1-year anniversary of the Covenant school shooting. We still have not been able to assess the motives of the shooter, which, as you know, in the last special session, I think made it difficult to produce legislation that might have been helpful. Do you still support the releasing of that information, even though it's tied up in court? Should the people of Tennessee and Nashville particularly, should they know more about that and what's in those diaries and what some people call a manifesto?
Yeah, from the beginning, I've said we ought to have more clarity. We ought to have greater understanding. We ought to know why or why not things are released. I understand it's a complicated issue, but yes, we ought to have more clarity. I've said it from the beginning. I still say it. It is tied up in the courts. That's how it will be decided. But and let me it's tragic. The 1-year anniversary, I've just met with parents just in the last couple of weeks, as I have over the past year. Parents of kids that were lost in this. We have a personal friend that was lost in that. And it's tragic, and we ought to continue to work toward efforts to make our schools safer. And as you know, we've done significant work.
Yes, you have,
Yeah, we've done some good things, but we can't stop. We got to keep going forward.
You tried to get what some people have called, I know you don't like the word, red flag law. I'll use that my term. It was unpopular, and it ultimately fell apart and didn't go forward. Do you have any regrets about pursuing that legislation?
It's funny. You when you're in my position, sometimes you just have to make a decision to do things that you believe are the right thing to do going forward, whether or not you think it's going to be politically popular but I believe that was the right step to go forward with. And if nothing else, to elevate the conversation and to create an environment where people can bring forth ideas that we will agree upon. So bringing forth an idea that doesn't pass or that isn't, likely to be moved upon doesn't mean that it wasn't worth doing, because it did create an opportunity for us to explore all kinds of things. We just signed a bill this week around the way schools have different types of alarms for different kinds of situations in the school. That's important. There will be a number of public safety pieces of legislation that come forth this year, next year, and it's what you should do. So I don't have regrets about bringing forth an idea, so long as that brings forth the ability for people to have dialogue about what can get done to create safety for our kids.
Appreciate that. I want to get an update on Blue Oval City, and the reason I raise it is because I keep seeing all these stories about GM and Ford specifically cutting way back on the number of electric vehicles they plan to produce. It seems like they can't sell them. It seems like they're not doing well on the lots of different dealerships around the country. And of course, that's what Blue Oval City was supposed to be, a place where they're going to build electric vehicles. Have you had any indication from Ford that they're pulling back? It's important because we have a lot of state money tied up in that project.
Yeah, there is no indication at all that Ford is pulling back. That project is underway. There there are thousands of construction workers, and there will be 6,000 workers when that plant opens in 25 for production. There's no indication to us that Ford is not entirely committed to this project. They are entirely committed to it. And I feel confident about that. And you know what? I was talking to a CEO of a major manufacturer. It was not Ford, but a CEO of an OEM in our state, who said to me, the consumer will decide what we produce. We will produce vehicles. We're going to produce cars. People are going to drive cars and trucks. The consumer will decide what that looks like, and we will produce what they want. I think that's probably true for all the manufacturers across the country. And from my perspective, this is about automotive manufacturing for Tennessee and the thousands of jobs created and the opportunity it means for Tennesseans. The market will decide, and the people will decide what those cars actually look like.
And one quick last question. I mean, you're always out there trying to find new companies that are coming. Anything you can tell us? Any news you want to make here today?
Well, I won't make news other than to say that there's some very impressive and exciting companies that are talking to us about locating here. We've got the number 1 or 2 or 3 fastest growing economy in the country. People know that. We have a way of life here. We have a tax structure here. We have a business environment here. We got so many things that are the envy of a lot of states. The people of Tennessee are unique. They're remarkable. The communities out there are attractive to people and companies from California to Michigan to New York, and they have to decide where they're going to go, and a lot of them are deciding to come here, and a lot of exciting announcements are going to be made in the next year. I can't speak to exactly what they're going to be because we don't know exactly what they're going to be, but we know that they're coming, and there's some
a lot of irons in the fire. Then I guess
that's a lot of what I do is try to create more opportunity for more Tennesseans. At the end of the day, people's lives are going to be made better if they have access to a better job, better options for a job, and we're working hard to make that possible.
All right, well, we're going to let you go then. Listen, thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you'll join us again soon in the near future.
Thanks for having me on. I always enjoy it. Thank you, sir.
Governor Bill Lee, 23 minutes now past the hour. All right, I want you to be honest with me. Are you happy with your weight? Well, I decidedly was not happy with mine, and I started regaining a lot of the weight that I lost last year, and I decided to do something about it. Now, I want you to know I have never taken on a weight loss client before, but I'm impressed with the program that Jamie and Carly over at Restoration Wellness Med Spa in Lebanon developed for me. You see, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. They took a look at my history, my lifestyle, and suggested an approach that is really starting to show results. And amazingly, and this is the best part, because I don't suffer this well, I'm not hungry. It's huge. Beyond that, Cabana Wife and I are undergoing peptide therapy at Restoration Wellness Med Spa, thrilled with the results. We've both noticed greater mental clarity and increased energy. So whether your goal is to lose weight or improve your overall health, Restoration Wellness Med Spa has a solution for you. Maybe it's time for you to join more than 1,000 patients who have already seen life-changing results. Here's the number, 615-470-8124. Learn more at restorationwellnessmedspa.com.
Due to a Florida judge's decision, Donald Trump's classified documents case will proceed, and the U.S. interceding to help calm the violence in Haiti. We'll have those stories at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, it's good to have the governor on. It's been a hot minute since we'd had him on, and that was sort of weird where we stepped into the twilight zone for a moment.
I guess he walked behind a steel curtain for a moment.
I don't know what happened there. He went away for a moment or two, but then he was never really gone. He could still hear us. I wonder if it's one of those things.
It completely dropped out. The line dropped, but he immediately dialed back.
Oh, he dialed back in. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't realize. I thought that something had happened. I thought maybe he hit accident. I know when I'm gesticulating and I'm talking, sometimes I hit buttons I don't intend to hit.
He may have done that.
I may have done that a time or two, and so I thought maybe that's what happened. But anyway, good to have him back. I'm glad that they were able to reconnect so quickly. I asked him. I thought one question that I've been really wanting to know about. That whole push for the red flag law, which was very unpopular, and it ended up going nowhere in the state legislature. And he talked about how sometimes I make decisions that I think are right, even if I know that they're not going to be popular. I've noticed this about Governor Lee, and I think it may be his great strength as a human being, and I think it may be, sometimes I think if you're a really good human being, it's hard to be a good politician. I mean, because I think what he's thinking about there was human lives. He's a very compassionate individual, and his faith informs everything that he does. And I like that about him. But I think every once in a while, I think his desire, his feeling of compassion for people, causes him to go down a path that doesn't make a lot of sense politically, or he's not going to go anywhere politically. And I think that's what happened. I mean, if that's what happened, I'm okay with a governor who has those priorities. The state legislature stepped in and said, no, that's not going to happen. But the thing about it was, I think I know the governor enough about him to know where it was coming from, even though it wasn't something that was popular, and I was 1,000% against it. I do understand, I think, where it kind of comes from. I think that's the person he is. I've seen it in other occasions where, a decision seems to be made that is informed by his faith or by his compassion for people. Those are good qualities to have as a human being. But sometimes I don't know if you can have those qualities and always be a good politician. I think I'm okay with that from time to time. Anyway, 5:30 now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good evening. It is 5:30, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. A mix of clouds and sun. We've got some wind, 79 degrees on Music Row, a traffic report, and a changing weather forecast in just a few minutes. A federal judge in Florida has denied former President Donald Trump's motion to dismiss the classified documents case against him. ABC News national correspondent Stephen Portnoy has the latest.
As he sat in the courtroom for more than 3 hours, Donald Trump watched his attorneys argue that when it comes to how a former president handled classified material, the law is unconstitutionally vague. In turning down their request to dismiss the charges, Judge Eileen Cannon signals it's her view that Trump's lawyers may be onto something, saying the issues they raise warrant serious consideration. But Cannon says throwing out the case now would be premature. Instead, she says she'll allow Trump's lawyers to raise the issues again as the case moves on.
The United States is trying to help Haiti end the chaotic violence there while at the same time protecting and evacuating American citizens.
The Pentagon's work to move Americans out of Haiti and protect those still there.
The embassy in Port-au-Prince remains open. We did enhance our security posture there over the weekend and earlier.
Pentagon spokesperson Sabrina Singh saying the U.S. is working with the Haitian National Police to help reestablish government control.
That's ABC's Andy Field reporting. That is the latest news, traffic and weather. They're next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Hey, listen, you've heard me talk about my friends at Nashville Gold and Coin. They are about to relocate to a new office space and are reducing inventory by offering silver coins and bars at the lowest prices ever. Maybe you've seen that gold and silver prices are soaring right now. This could be a good opportunity to get on the front run at a super low premium. You've got your generic silver rounds and bars offered as low as $1.50 over the spot price. They are selling the top-of-the-line American Silver Eagles as low as $3.50 over the spot price from now until March 26th. Silver Canadian maple leaves now as low as $2 over spot price. They do have limited supply at these prices, so give them a call today. They continue to stock all your gold and silver staples as well. If you've been on the fence about putting your dollars into real hard assets, there's never been a better time to jump in with Nashville Gold and Coin. You can find them on their website, NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. Set up your one-on-one appointment at NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. It is 37 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and you're listening to The Drive on this 14th day of March. I don't know what it's doing down there. My temperature says here at Watertown, it's a balmy 81 degrees.
Yeah, that's what we had earlier, too, yeah. I think it's still 81.
81 degrees right now, and the water in the Wilson pool is a warmer 86 degrees.
Ooh.
I'm telling
Lovely.
you. I know, because I looked out there today and I checked the weather temperature. Ooh, it's nice.
Mm.
And I didn't want to say anything while I had the governor on the line, but I am sitting here in my bathing suit.
Probably best you didn't mention
I know.
that.
I was well, Governor, I'm going to swimming later. No, and that didn't seem like would be appropriate, but I am. And it's a wonderful thing being on TV here on Super Talk TV. Nobody knows.
Well, they do now. You just told them.
Well, I know, but I mean, they can't see it.
Thankfully,
that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Got my flippies on. I'm not going back into real shoes until August.
No
September,
socks until the weather changes.
That's right. That's right. I mean, I'm big on the flip flops. And we should revive. Well, except when I did the morning show, I was used to say it was Flip Flop Friday. Wear your flip flops to work. Tell the boss I said it was okay.
Yeah.
But I'm at the end of the workday now, so I should do that on Thursday. Tomorrow is Flip Flop Friday.
That's right.
Wear your flip flops to work. Tell the boss I said it was okay.
Yeah.
I think people really, we should all be in our flip flops.
What are they going to do? Send you home?
Yeah. Get some of those. I don't know what they call. I forget what they're called. UFOs. Oh man, I love my UFOs.
The high dollar ones, huh?
Oh well, I don't know if they're high dollar. I mean, honestly, my sister turned me on to them, and they can be worn by men or women. They're a unisex flip flop, and I don't know. No, they're not. No, it's not like that. But I tell you what they're designed for is to help you rehabilitate your feet if you're a runner and you run out there and you really beat up your feet like in a marathon or something. You put these on and it's supposed to help rehabilitate. But I tell you, I love them. I would live in them year round if it didn't get cold.
Yeah, they're pretty stylish. Yeah, I like them.
Yeah, UFOs. I'm pretty cool on it. They pay me nothing. I know. This is priceless. Fox Business Reporter, there's a hearing on Capitol Hill. Bernie Sanders, communist from Vermont, is, well, he might as well be. He's pushing an idea that's going nowhere. I don't know why they even bothered. We had a big hearing. He wants a 32-hour work week. Now, while you then might think that's a pretty good idea, never going anywhere in this legislation. I mean, it'd be great to work 32 hours and get the same pay. It ain't going to happen. It's never going to happen in America, and it's certainly not going to happen anytime soon. So a Fox Business reporter stopped him in the hallway, so-called, hallway grab. Now, I think that the way you do these things, I used to do this all the time, is, you're not supposed to chase a senator down a hallway. It's not allowed under the rules, but you can ask a senator as they're approaching, may I ask you a question about so-and-so, so-and-so? And they can say yes or no. And, but if you walk alongside, sometimes you get a little something more. But you're never supposed to chase. She didn't chase, but she just tried to engage him. And at one point he started to walk away. Well, I'll just play it out. This is good stuff. Bernie Sanders versus a Fox Business reporter.
It seems like Democrats want businesses to be taxed more, pay their workers.
Really? Is that what you think?
pay their workers.
Excuse me.
I didn't get to ask
me.
a question.
Okay, thank you.
Senator,
You want to hold it? Okay.
Now he turns to the camera.
We held a hearing on a 32-hour work week because what we have seen is that over the last 50 years, despite a huge increase in worker productivity, almost all of the new wealth has gone to the top 1%, while 60% of the people are living paycheck to paycheck. Many of our people are exhausted. We work the longest hours of any people in the industrialized world. I think it's time for a shortened work week.
Could I ask you a question about that? It seems like Democrats want businesses to be taxed more,
Really?
pay their workers more, lower prices, and now pay people not to work.
You know what I would like to see?
How are businesses going to survive that? That's the question. How can businesses survive all of those proposals?
When Mr. Bezos pays an effective tax rate lower than the average worker, I think we have a real problem in our tax system. I think that billionaires have got to start paying their fair share of taxes.
Well, I mean, that degenerated. I will give the young, I think this is probably not a reporter, but a producer. It's the way it looks to me. I give her credit for not backing down. I can shout as loud as you can. You know, Bernie Sanders, who always sounds like the Aardvark, that cartoon, the Aardvark.
He really does.
He really does. He sounds just exactly like the Aardvark. Anyway, so that's good. But I mean, what a ridiculous idea. I mean, do you think that in a situation where you have the Republicans controlling the House, this is going anywhere? No, it's not. This is why these elections are important. I mean, to do that to business, to say you're going to get 8 hours, a whole day basically of work day, less out of people, but you're going to pay them the same thing. It will put so many people out of business. It's crazy. It's just an insane idea. We're built on a 40-hour week. We've always had a 40-hour week. We're going to continue to have a 40-hour week. But Bernie Sanders, is out there pushing for a 32-hour work week. I mean, would I love to not work would I like to have a 4-day work week? Sure. Is it realistic? No, it's not. Because then you got to hire somebody part-time to fill in that day. If you're a business, okay, especially if you're a retail business, you got to hire somebody to fill in. Now you got to hire somebody to work Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You're going to be out more money, and you're going to lose productivity, and it will kill the economy. About 15 reasons why this is a bad idea. And what does he pull out? This is what the difference. Well, Bezos doesn't pay any taxes. You know why he doesn't pay any taxes? Because the Congress passes the tax laws that are advantageous to billionaires. Okay, if you want to fix that, fix it. But don't use that as an example. You are the reason why he doesn't pay any taxes, because that tax code wasn't written by by somebody else. They were written by the Congress. So if you want to fix that, but they won't do that either. No. We're going to point to Jeff Bezos and change our old policies based on that kind of stuff. Okay. Want to get into very quickly this whole story about minority voters shifting to the GOP in large numbers. This is a fascinating story. Now, look, each day on yourfarb.com, I post all of the stories that I pull information from, well, most of them, because some of them happen during the show, but all the major stories that I'm pulling stuff from, I put up on yourfarb.com so you can look them up. If you look under the 2024 tab or the under the 2024 heading, you will find this story. It is from pjmedia.com. Fascinating story about how minority voters are shifting to the GOP in large numbers, huge numbers. And I'm telling you, this is a trend that is not new. It is absolutely definable trend, and it's really exciting for the Republican Party and terrifying for the folks who are Democrats right now. I mean, they're losing a good number of Black and Hispanic voters to the Republican Party. Why? I think it has to do with the fact that they're not doing well in this economy, And I think they remember back when Trump was the president and they were doing pretty well. One of the things that's just is when you look at, there's a graph, and I wish that I could put this graph up so you could see it, but, many of you are listening on the radio, and those of you are watching on Super Talk TV, I can't do that. I don't have that ability. But one way or the other, the number of minorities that are supporting the Democrat Party going down at about a 45-degree angle, and the number of minorities now supporting Republican candidates going up at about a 45-degree. They haven't quite crossed, but they're close. And I'm telling you, it is a huge thing right now. That means big-time success for conservatives, ostensibly, in the coming election, and it could be a devastating thing for Democrats. I mean, they're panicking. You know what else they're panicking about? They had a State of the Union address that remember what we heard from the Democrats? Don't you worry about these numbers. Joe Biden numbers are sliding. We're going to turn it all around at the State of the Union address. Yeah, Joe's going to get out there and he's going to give them hell. And you know what's going to happen? Those numbers are going to go right back up. We're going to dispel all the rumors about Joe. What they did basically is they started more rumors that on big nights they pump him up full of Adderall. That's the rumor. Because I mean, you look at him. I mean, you saw him on State of the Union night, and then you hear him like this, and you go, "What's going on with this?"
Anyway, and I don't want to. Well, maybe choose my words.
I mean, this is the same guy who was shouting at the State of the Union. Do you not think that they jacked this guy up on something? I do. Because this is the way he is most of the time.
Putin's kleptocracy. Yeah.
I mean, isn't that painful? Anyway, one way or the other, they said he was gonna turn things around. You know what? The polls show that he got absolutely no post State of the Union bump. Now, usually a president gets a little bump. They go in, they have a good performance, they practice, they got their lines, they got their teleprompter, they got everybody yelling and screaming on their side of the aisle, and they generally almost always get a bump. No discernible bump for Biden after the State of the Union address. And the numbers, I'll go quickly through the numbers. Battleground states, Arizona, Trump up by 4. Pennsylvania, Trump up by 4. I have both a Fox News and a Hill poll that show in Pennsylvania, Trump is up by 4. That's good in a battleground state. Nevada, we have a Noble Predictive Insight poll that shows that Trump may be up by as much as 7. That is not out of bounds from what I've seen in other polls. And that's about a battleground state as well. Michigan, they have Trump up by 3 in a straight one-on-one contest between Trump and Biden. But if you add other names into it, like, Kennedy and others, Trump wins by 5. If they lose Michigan, there may not be a pathway to 270 electoral college votes, which is what you need to become the president of the United States without Michigan. And the polls are starting to look, pretty good there. He's got problems with Arab American voters in the state of Michigan and auto workers who don't like him and like Trump better. And then very quickly, Ohio, which is not a battleground state, Trump is leading by 12 in Ohio. You need 270 electoral college votes to become president. I've been producing my own map of late. I have Trump at 257. I'm still calling Arizona, although it's getting close to being able to call it for Trump. Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin at the moment as too close to call. It is now 51 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Hey, are you in the market for a pole barn? I mean, boy, I tell you what, I would love to have one. The two brothers that run Stoltzko are the two guys you need to talk to. Exceptional quality, craftsmanship, fair prices. They can build a new pole barn to your specifications with your needs in mind. That is the Stoltzko difference. Now, you can use pole barns for all kinds of things. It can function as a classic tool or work barn, a garage, or even a place to live. Flexibility is key. They combine the classic post-frame barn look with the reliability of modern materials and techniques to give you a finished barn that will stand the test of time. They don't scrimp on quality. They don't cut corners. They believe their customers deserve only the best. I want you to go to their website, stoltzco.com. That's STOLTZCO, stoltzco.com. Take a look at what they've done for some other people. And then you're probably going to call them and set up your appointment. 615-622-5992. Stoltzco, where quality workmanship and great customer service is affordable. Learn more at stoltzco.com. That's stoltzco.com. Let me tell you about the folks over at Busy Bee, HVAC, and Plumbing. Listen, if you've got a problem with your air conditioner or your heater, and this time of year you could use a little bit of both, you need to call them right away. Here's the number. You remember it from the jingle, 775-7833. They'll buzz right over to your house. They'll get you going. Make sure everything is working the way it's supposed to work. Now, I think that the real way that you solve problems long-term is to do preventative maintenance. And that's what the Beehive Club is all about. Become a member for as little as $99. For that, you will get 3 thorough maintenance services, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing. No overtime charges 24/7 and 10% off all repairs. You can really save a boatload. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. So for satisfaction guaranteed, call the people I call whenever I got a problem. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 615-775-7833, online at busybhvac.com.
Good evening. It's 6 p.m., and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. 79 degrees, mostly sunny on Music Row. Traffic and a changing weather forecast are coming up in a few minutes. The court hearing Donald Trump's classified documents case has denied his request to throw out the case against him, at least for now.
Donald Trump's lawyers argued the classified document charges against him were constitutionally vague. But Judge Eileen Cannon said it's premature to rule on that before trial and denied Mr. Trump's motion to dismiss the case against him. Still, the judge left open the possibility they could bring this up again, but for now, the classified documents and obstruction charges remain.
That's ABC's Andy Field reporting. Officials say at least one tornado touched down today in southern Indiana's Jefferson County, flattening homes there. County Emergency Management reports damage in the towns of Hanover and Brooksburg. Trees and power lines are down and power is out throughout that area. Bill Wagner says he was buried under 2 feet of debris when he took cover in his home.
Everything in it's gone. The back wall is gone. The roof is off the garage. It's all gone.
The search continues here in Nashville for missing college student Riley Strain after his disappearance while on a fraternity trip in Nashville about a week ago. Strain, 22, a University of Missouri student, went missing after he was asked to leave Luke Bryan's Broadway bar on March 8th because those there deemed he was intoxicated. He was officially reported missing the next day. Metro Nashville Police conducted a briefing on the young man's disappearance earlier today. Nashville Police Sergeant Robert Nielsen describing some of the search efforts thus far.
We've been utilizing our urban search and rescue people as well as our police boat. They've gone up and down the bank. They've made multiple sweeps. Urban Search and Rescue has checked several areas, including any dilapidated buildings, as well as there's a storm drain that people will use sometimes. So they've been doing that, as well as we've had our cold case detectives actually walking the Greenway all the way up towards Jefferson Street.
Nielsen emphasizes that currently no foul play is suspected. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
It is 6:06 on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy on what is still a glorious evening here in Middle Tennessee. 78 degrees. Wow. It's still knocking on the door of 80. It's going to be a beautiful evening until the thunderstorms start coming in a little later tonight. It could get a little rough, so this is one of those nights where you need to be weather aware. Keep one eye on the weather and bring in your cushions because it's going to be that kind of night. Okay, a great day. We've had a great show here today. All kinds of news and information. Governor Bill Lee dropped by for a nice long visit. I think we'll replay. It's a little soon, but I'll probably replay that, I guess, here at 6:35. And we may need to condense that down a little bit, Chris, so it'll fit in that slot because we ran a little over. Well, he was a little late, and then we ran a little over. That's okay.
We'll make it work.
We'll make it work because that's what we do. Hey, listen, I grew up as a child of the 60s and the 70s, which means, I'm older than dirt right now. Honestly, I truly am. And I can't help it. I geeze sometimes. But, when I grew up listening to music, they say that when you're in high school, the music you listen to is the music that, you sort of come to love the most. I think I'm probably true. I mean, I've learned to, I really love country and bluegrass and I've learned to love a lot of different forms of music. But I mean, I got to tell you, I got a lot of Beatles on my phone. I think every song the Beatles ever recorded on my iPhone. And, I keep buying it over and over and over because they keep making it better and better. I mean, it's hard to believe, but they have this thing now out there. What do we call it? Spatial. The spatial audio, SPATIAL, spatial audio. Well, they have remastered all of the great Beatles songs with this spatial audio. And I'm telling you, I don't know what kind of voodoo they got in this spatial audio stuff, but all of a sudden, the music sounds so much better and so much different. And they've remastered it. And, part of the problem was in those days, they only had some of the early recordings, especially, they only had like maybe 2 or 3 tracks. And sometimes, they didn't have more than, 1 or 2 tracks. And they had to bounce stuff back and forth. And so you would end up with, that's why you listen to some of the early Beatles stuff. All the vocals are over on the left side. And all of the musicians is over on the right side. It sounds weird today. You would never mix a song that way, but that's what they had to do because they were limited. Well, then came multi-tracks and all that kind of stuff. But still, a lot of this stuff got sort of jammed together. The drums and the bass and maybe a guitar would be on one track. Well, now they got this voodoo technology. I don't know what it is, but they can pull out those individual tracks and separate them one from the other. It's amazing. And then they can place them and remix it so that you can hear the individual instruments a lot better than you could when they were all sort of slammed together. It's remarkable what they can do. And so I keep buying the Beatles stuff as it gets better and better and better. And I mean, I have the Red album, which is all of their early hits, and then the Blue album, which is a lot of their later hits. It's been all remastered that way. Oh, my goodness, it sounds so good. If you don't know about spatial audio, and you sort of love that kind of thing, get you some of that. Download you some of that. I played some of it for you the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Down the line. It sounds great. It really does.
Especially if you get a good either a good sound system or even better yet, a good set of headphones.
Or a great earbuds or something like that.
You can just hear the sounds coming from every which way.
I mean, it's really amazing. It truly is. And so, when I read, I have a lot of interest in probably I know too much about the Beatles. But I'm not as much as some of my friends. Some of my friends, are serious. My friend James Rosen, he's a Beatle nut. I have another friend named Tony Perkins, used to be the weatherman on Good Morning America. Good guy, good friend.
Run the Bates Motel, did he?
No, not that Tony Perkins. Different Tony Perkins. Okay. But I'm telling you, he's got whole rooms in his house dedicated to his Beatles memorabilia.
Wow.
So, some of the people are great. Anyway, the reason I thought about all this is that there's a story here, and WKRN did it today, about what happened in Lebanon, Tennessee in 1974. Now, I would have just been graduating from high school. June of 74, I know what I was doing. I was working down in my dad's shop in Odessa, Texas, and I was listening to some Beatles along the way. Well, the Beatles had broken up by that point, and Paul McCartney set up shop in Lebanon on a farm just outside Lebanon on Franklin Road with Wings, and began working on new music. And, you know, the people in Lebanon they tried to protect them, but, you know, word got out because they would like show up at the Lebanon Square, do some shopping. They'd be seen riding around on little motor scooters that they found.
They might stand out a little bit.
And if you see Paul McCartney driving by on a motor scooter, it's probably going to catch your attention. So word did get out that they were out there, but they were staying at this house, two houses really, Paul McCartney, Linda McCartney, the McCartney kids, and Wings, the members of the band Wings were there. 133 acres, belonged to a guy named Curly Putman. I think that's right. Is that right? But yeah, Curly was his name, and he rented it to Paul McCartney and Wings, and then their whole family got to go on a trip while their house was being used by Wings. They went to Hawaii for 6 weeks and got a paid vacation.
Wow.
But according to the story here, and I've seen this story, a version of this story before, McCartney and the band Wings were spotted all over the square in downtown Lebanon. Sandra Bryan was 15 years old. She said she saw Paul McCartney riding a motorcycle, and she tried to get his autograph. He says, not a good time. And didn't. But he said they didn't wear helmets because they didn't know about Tennessee helmet laws. And then a neighbor, Vicky Eads, apparently did some babysitting and would saddle the horses for them so they could go riding for a while. And just, you know, can you imagine the buzz in little Lebanon, Tennessee? I mean, it's big as a place that it is now. It must have been much smaller in 1974. To know that, Paul McCartney of the Beatles was hanging out on a farm just down the road there.
Brian, Curly Putman he's passed away now. He was a legendary songwriter here in Nashville.
Yeah.
One of the co-writers of He Stopped Loving Her Today, among other songs.
I didn't know that he had a part in that. But
he and Bobby Braddock. Yeah.
And they did say in the story that McCartney had used his music connections to find this place. Well, anyway, one of the songs that came out of it is a song called Junior's Farm, which is what became sort of, I guess, their nickname for the place that they were staying. Take me down to Junior's Farm. Wow. You know, a lot of people don't like Wings. They had some great stuff.
They did have some good stuff.
Yeah, I mean...
Oh, Band on the Run? Come on.
That's a great album.
Yes,
absolutely.
it is.
I got no issues with that. But, I mean, a lot of people said, well, it's not the same. It's not the Beatles. Paul McCartney, as I study the Beatles and I read everything that I can find on them, sort of just an obsession that I have, one of the things that I learned is, it seems to me when you see, what happened to the Beatles, why did they break up? Well, I think it was more John Lennon. I mean, John Lennon had Yoko there, and that was putting pressure in the recording sessions. They didn't much care for Yoko, but they tried to, in order to keep the peace, they just accepted it. But it wasn't going over well. And then it seems like to me, John sort of got strung out on drugs. And McCartney was the workhorse. He was the one that was always calling people saying, let's get back into the studio, mates. Let's get back into the studio. And wanted them to be recording. And, they didn't... He was the guy who always, was sort of driving the Beatles to do more. And then when they got in there, they were creative geniuses, there's no doubt. McCartney and Lennon, some of the greatest all-time songwriters ever. But I really look at it being more John Lennon being the cause than I do Paul McCartney. And McCartney believes that and is very quick to say so. So I also have a friend. His name is Chuck Howard Jr. I haven't seen him in a while, but this is a guy that I met sometime who lived here in Nashville before I came to Nashville. And Chuck Howard Jr., I was talking to him one day, And he was telling me the stories about after the Beatles broke up. He comes down to breakfast at his house. His dad was Chuck Howard Sr., who was a pretty well-known producer in his own right, very well-known. And he said, and sitting across the table from me at breakfast was Ringo Starr. Now, Ringo recorded a lot of songs in Nashville as well, post-Beatles. And, there was a time when you could make the argument that Paul McCartney was probably the most successful Beatle post-Beatles. But the person who had the most hits after Paul McCartney was Ringo Starr, believe it or not. He found, success and a lot of stuff that got played on what was then called Top 40 radio. But Chuck said, I looked up and said, "You're Ringo Starr." And he said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Okay, why did the Beatles break up?" That was his first question. Can you imagine some kid coming down to dinner at some breakfast table and asking Ringo Starr, "Well, tell me the story about why the Beatles broke up." Have you, first of all, most people would never want to ask that question. And then, but, I don't know if he got an answer or not, but I thought that was hilarious. There are a lot of Nashville connections post-Beatles, but I can only imagine. As I drive around Lebanon today, I go to do a lot of my shopping in Lebanon. It's sort of a bustling little center of commerce there, but back in '74, it was a pretty sleepy little town, I have a feeling. And
probably a lot more like Watertown is today. I'm sure it's
How about
a
that?
little bigger, but still
they shoot a lot of music videos in Watertown, believe it or not. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
No, they do, and there's several of them that have been shot in Watertown. I think it was maybe about a month ago. I think it was. I was going to go down and take a look at it, but I forgot that there was like a bus and a movie crew and the whole 9 yards, and they were shooting another music video here in Watertown. I heard the name of the artist. I can't recall it off the top of my head, but no, they do that here.
You should have gone down and asked if they needed a large individual to fill out a background shot or something, Get a volunteer.
Could have been maybe an extra. Yeah. Well, why did you have to bring up large? I mean, really, honestly.
Tall.
That was not necessary. We'll call it 20 minutes after the hour now at 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Have you noticed how unreliable things can be these days? Like when someone tells you, "Hey, that thing you want will be ready at 4 o'clock." And you show up at 4 o'clock and guess what? It's not ready. Well, listen, if you've had unreliable experiences at vehicle repair shops, why don't you come to Eurofix? Eurofix will have your vehicle ready when they say it's ready, and you don't have to stand around tapping your toe waiting. Eurofix repairs all European cars with quality that beats the dealer without dealer pricing. Now, that's because dealer repair shops are designed to pay virtually all of a dealership's overhead, and that's a lot of money. Why would you want to pay for that? At Eurofix, reliable means a 3-year nationwide warranty plus a free loaner car with every repair appointment. Make sure you call ahead, as loaner cars are very popular. If you're tired of unreliable repair shops, come to where it is reliable. Eurofix, family-owned for 24 years. Call 844-EUROFIX. That's 844-EUROFIX, or visit myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com.
The U.S. continues to work to quell the violence in Haiti. The Nashville airport could be offering even more destinations. And, of course, we'll have today's closing money news. That's all coming up at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 24 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy. And by the way, I was looking up, because, again, I obsess about this stuff. Curly Putnam Jr. is why they called it Junior's Farm.
Well, there you go.
Reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the year 75, maybe it came out. Recorded in July, over 2 days, July 17th and 18th, right there in Lebanon.
You learned something new.
I know. Pretty cool, huh? You know, Elon Musk, sometimes, I look at Elon and I shake my head like, what have you gotten yourself into now, Elon? He's an interesting cat. He looks at the world very differently. I think that's probably because, as he will tell you, it's no secret, he is a high-functioning autistic. He is on the spectrum, he'll be happy to tell you that. He said so on Saturday Night Live when he hosted. And so I think he looks at the world in a very different way. And sometimes I just marvel at the things that he has accomplished. I mean, whether or not you want to drive an electric car or not, you have to admit that the Tesla is pretty. I mean, people who drive electric cars say it's the car to have. Whenever I start bashing on electric cars, which I do from time to time, I get all of these, these emails, hot emails from people who have loved their Teslas. And, he found a market and developed a pretty remarkable product and put it out there. I mean, there's a lot of naysayers. A lot of people always, trying to say bad things about Tesla and by Elon Musk. But he found a market and made a lot of money doing that. And then, he likes rockets. And he's been building, right now, we thank Elon Musk for getting America the ability to put humans back into space again. We had lost that ability because when the shuttles all shut down and they decided they lived out their useful life, we didn't have a way to get people like to the International Space Station. We counted on the Russians. We didn't have a heavy lift capability to put people into space. And Elon Musk developed rockets that not only launch people into space, but then the boosters land, on little boats out in the middle of the sea, and they use them again and again and again. And he has cut the cost of going into space dramatically. And by the way, they say that when it's all said and done, they're going to be able to reuse some of these rockets, not 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 times, but like 50, 60 times. They're going to be able to use these rockets. So every time they're able to improve the rocket to the point where they can use it more reliably again and again and again, guess what happens? The cost of launching things into space comes down dramatically. Well, now he's got this Starship, which is the ship that he wants to use to go to Mars. But it is a beast. I mean, and compared to the other rockets that have ever flown, even including the massive Saturn V, which was used to take people into space, back in the day and to go to the moon, this thing just dwarfs it all. It's hard to tell when you're looking at a rocket on a piece of video how big it is, but this thing is monstrous. It's called the Starship, and I forget how many different rockets it bundles into this thing, but it's a lot. And they've been trying to get it to successfully launch into space, and they've been a couple of tests, and the first 2 tests blew up. You know what? Elon doesn't mind it if a rocket blows up. It's okay by him if you learn something that improves the rocket and then you can use it the next time. These are still just in the testing phase. They're not carrying any payloads. So today, the 3rd test of the Starship rocket, and it went all the way into space, this massive, massive rocket.
It's almost 400 feet tall.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's a monster. And it went into space and got into orbit, and it got a lot further along. However, it did break up during re-entry over the Indian Ocean. The company noted the vehicle did not splash down in the water, which was the intended ending of the flight. We lost Ship 28, but they look at this as a huge victory Musk congratulated his company in a post shortly after the launch, announcing that Starship reached orbital velocity. NASA Chief Bill Nelson congratulated SpaceX on a successful test flight. His Starship has soared into the heavens. Together, we're making great strides through Artemis to return humanity to the moon and then onward to Mars. That is still our long-term plan. But you know what? None of the things that are happening, the big stuff that is happening with rocketry today, it's all Elon Musk. I mean, I read somewhere where another country was trying to launch a rocket. I mean, you know, it's apparently rocket science is really difficult. That's why they call it rocket science. And, you know, although we've been doing it successfully in this country, and Elon Musk, I mean, there's not a week goes by, they're not launching something into space on their Falcon 9 rocket. And then watching those boosters just come back just as reliably as the sun comes up in the east and sets in the west. They land on right on where they're supposed to land. It's amazing how he does all that. So the Starship system is designed to one day be fully reusable and aims to become the new method for flying big, heavy objects. I mean, huge objects into space, more than we've ever been able to do. And I got to say, he spent about $2 billion to get the Starship where it is now. If past his prologue, they will figure this out, and then the next flight that they have, I'm pretty sure will be a successful flight. Something to watch. Again, Elon Musk continues to impress. 30 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock.
Good evening. It is 6:30, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We still are at 79 degrees with sunshine in Nashville. The full weather forecast and the latest traffic there on the way. With violence ongoing in Haiti, White House National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby today asked about U.S. involvement in helping the country regain peace.
The situation on the ground is still not safe, not tenable for the Haitian people. We recognize that. Our international partners recognize that. And Haitian leaders recognize that. So there's been some good progress on the diplomatic front, certainly good progress from the United States on the economic support front.
The U.S. Embassy in Haiti at the moment remains open. Back here in Nashville, passengers at Nashville International Airport, they more than doubled in the last 10 years. That statistic could drastically increase as B&A eyes 6 new European markets. Fox 17 here in Nashville reporting that at a roundtable with Nashville and airport officials, teams are working to increase international travel. What destinations could be on the horizon? How about Iceland, Ireland, the Netherlands, Germany, France, and possibly Italy? Now here is today's closing money news.
From ABC News, Wall Street now. What goes up eventually comes down. The Dow fell 138 points. The Nasdaq gave up 49 and the S&P closed down 15. A mixed batch of economic reports pushed the markets lower. One showed a slight rise in wholesale prices last month. Former Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin is putting together an investor group to buy TikTok now that the House passed a bill which would ban the popular video app in the U.S. if its China-based owner doesn't sell its stake. Mnuchin told CNBC TikTok should be owned by a U.S. business and that Beijing would never allow an American company to own something similar in China. He isn't saying who might be in the group. President Biden renewing his opposition to the planned sale of U.S. steel to Japan's Nippon Steel, saying the U.S. needs strong American steel companies powered by American steel workers. He's already expressed worries about what the sale could mean for union workers, supply chains, and national security.
And that's ABC's Daria Albinger. That is the latest news, traffic and weather. They are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
You know, Grace Point Healthcare is the standard for affordable, comprehensive, and convenient medicine. How? Well, as a direct pay provider, your health care is delivered without the red tape of an insurer's guidelines. Smart Care plans make it even more affordable, starting at only $69 a month. Here's what you'll get for that. Free office visits and free basic labs for an entire year. Now, Grace Point identifies and treats the root causes of a condition, not just the symptoms, through a comprehensive functional approach. And usually by seeing you the same or the next day, you're treated at your convenience. Boy, that's a big deal, isn't it? Grace Point Healthcare, affordable, comprehensive, and convenient medicine delivered the old-fashioned way. As you know, they are located on Main Street in Franklin. Here's the number to set up your appointment, 599-6868. That's 599-6868. "38 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Hey, listen, earlier today on the program, Governor Bill Lee joined us, and we think there was a lot of news there. So here is an encore presentation of our interview earlier today with Governor Bill Lee. First of all, I want to say thank you for sending troops to the border of the state of Texas. You know, I think it speaks remarkably of the young men and women who serve in our National Guard that they asked for 100 volunteers and they got 400 volunteers. Can you tell me exactly what they're doing down there and how those resources are being utilized by the state of Texas?
First, let me say I agree with you about the volunteers, and I was at a National Guard hangar just a couple weeks ago, the day before they deployed. I got to speak to those volunteers and thank them. They were ready for this mission. They understood the importance of it. Just a few weeks before that, I had been to Texas with 14 governors. We met with Governor Abbott. We met with their state police and the officials that they laid out all the details of what they were facing. We all know crisis that exists there, and the national security issue that it is, the human trafficking and drug trafficking and sex trafficking, and it is an unspeakable crisis that has to be addressed. Federal government isn't addressing it, and Governor Abbott's made the decision he's going to on the border of Texas with Texas resources. So he asked for other states to help, and the volunteer state did, and we have sent troops. We'll send another wave of troops. We're under the guidance of Texas. Details about the whereabouts and exactly what troops are doing for security reasons, we don't release that publicly. But
all right.
Basically what we are doing is we've come alongside them and said, you tell us how it is that we can help you. And there are a number of ways that mission is executed, but primarily it's to provide security, make sure that the border is secure and keeps people out that shouldn't be crossing.
Well, as a born and raised in Texas, and now I'm in Tennessee, I tell you, I know the people there appreciate it. I want to move on to your universal school choice proposal, which is now wending its way through the state legislature. Some people call them school vouchers. There are different proposals, one in the House, one in the Senate, very different approaches. How do you feel about the chances of getting a bill that meets your goals? Will they actually be able to come up with a compromise? Obviously, it's probably going to go to a conference. Do you think you're going to get a bill that you can sign? Do you have confidence in that?
I'm really encouraged. I sure do. I think the primary thing that is encouraging to me is that people have come to believe that parents should have a choice, that the person that knows the best what's best for their kid is the parent of that kid. And that's what the premise of Education Freedom Scholarship Act is. It is to give a parent a wider choice as it relates to their kids' education. The House believes that. The Senate believes that. Our office believes that. We put it out back in November, which is much earlier than I have ever brought forth a piece of legislation, but prior to the session, because I knew there'd be a lot of stakeholders. There'd be a lot of people interested in this, and I wanted them to all have an opportunity to weigh into it, which is exactly what's happening. So the House has the basic premise of our desire at our office, but they have that, they've taken that basic premise and added to it. And they've come up with ideas that they think strengthen it, make it better, make it better for the entire educational outcomes for our kids. The Senate has done the same thing. They have ideas that are, but the basic premise of getting this is the same. It's that parents will have a choice at the end of the day.
Is there anything in there that might be sort of a problem for you, something that would really you would like to see not in this bill?
I think my hope is just that we expand choice to every family in the state. That's the primary purpose of me doing this. I like a lot of the proposals on both sides. And what I like most is that the House and Senate leadership are meeting. They're meeting about it. They are committed to finding a path forward. They're looking at the cost implications and the policy implications, but they're going to find a way forward. They always do. That's kind of how this process works, particularly when you have both Lieutenant Governor and the Speaker and leadership in both chambers committed to the idea. That's why I think this is going to happen.
Initiating change is always hard because, people don't like things that are different, things that are new. I love the approach, quite frankly, but I noticed that, as you call them, stakeholders, some of the stakeholders have had concerns. Wilson County, where I live, has aligned itself against the proposal. I know some of the other school boards around the state have real concerns. What would you say to those who disagree with your approach?
Well, I think the thing that I say most is that what matters most is the kids and the families, and the parents that have engaged in our education savings accounts to date, and we have them in Davidson, Shelby, Hamilton, and for those parents, 91% of them believe that their kids are having a better experience under that education savings account than they were having before. That's what matters most to me. Those are the stakeholders that I care about the most, is the parent of the kid that is choosing where their kid goes to school. 91% of them are happy. So that's number one. Number two, I think, you talk about change, and change is hard, but the status quo has got to be challenged. I mean, particularly when you've got, 30% of your kids can read at third grade level. Status quo has to be challenged. We need to find ways of doing things differently going forward. And the other thing is, this is not a matter of choosing between choice and public school system. The vast majority of our kids are going to be in a public school. We've put almost $2 billion toward our public education system in the past few years. Historic funding, historic teacher pay raises. We revamped the funding formula so that it works better for public schools. We're putting more money in that formula in this year's budget. So we don't have to choose. We can have a commitment to better public schools and at the same time offer parents choices. And honestly, what you're seeing happen across the country, parents, Americans are really waking up to the idea that this is something that should be happening. I mean, Alabama just passed a universal school choice. Arkansas, Kentucky's moving one. And you know what? Tennessee just doesn't need to be left behind. Our kids don't need to be left behind. So I'm excited about this. You can tell that as I talk about it.
Yeah,
this is
a lot of passion there. There's no doubt. I got a couple other quick questions I want to get in before our time runs down. We're approaching, I think it's next week, the 1-year anniversary of the Covenant School shooting. We still have not been able to assess the motives of the shooter, which, as you know, in the last special session, I think made it difficult to produce legislation that might have been helpful. Do you still support the releasing of that information, even though it's tied up in court? Should the people of Tennessee and Nashville particularly, should they know more about that and what's in those diaries and what some people call a manifesto?
Yeah, from the beginning, I've said we ought to have more clarity. We ought to have greater understanding. We ought to know why or why not things are released. I understand it's a complicated issue, but yes, we ought to have more clarity. I've said it from the beginning. I still say it. It is tied up in the courts. That's how it will be decided. But and let me just, it's tragic. The 1-year anniversary, I've just met with parents just in the last couple of weeks, as I have over the past year. Parents of kids that were lost in this. We have a personal friend that was lost in that. And it's tragic, and we ought to continue to work toward efforts to make our schools safer. And as you know, we've done significant work.
Yes,
Yeah, we've done some good things, but we can't stop. We got to keep going forward.
You tried to get what some people have called, I know you don't like the word, red flag law. I'll use that my term. It was unpopular, and it ultimately fell apart and didn't go forward. Do you have any regrets about pursuing that legislation?
It's funny. You when you're in my position, sometimes you just have to make a decision to do things that you believe are the right thing to do going forward, whether or not you think it's going to be politically popular but I believe that was the right step to go forward with. And if nothing else, to elevate the conversation and to create an environment where people can bring forth ideas that we will agree upon. So bringing forth an idea that doesn't pass or that isn't, likely to be moved upon doesn't mean that it wasn't worth doing, because it did create an opportunity for us to explore all kinds of things. We just signed a bill this week around the way schools have different types of alarms for different kinds of situations in the school. That's important. There will be a number of public safety pieces of legislation that come forth this year, next year, and it's what you should do. So I don't have regrets about bringing forth an idea, so long as that brings forth the ability for people to have dialogue about what can get done to create safety for our kids.
Appreciate that. I want to get an update on Blue Oval City, and the reason I raise it is because I keep seeing all these stories about GM and Ford specifically cutting way back on the number of electric vehicles they plan to produce. It seems like they can't sell them. It seems like they're not doing well on the lots of different dealerships around the country. And of course, that's what Blue Oval City was supposed to be, a place where they're going to build electric vehicles. Have you had any indication from Ford that they're pulling back? It's important because we have a lot of state money tied up in that project.
Yeah, there is no indication at all that Ford is pulling back. That project is underway. There are thousands of construction workers, and there will be 6,000 workers when that plant opens in 25 for production. There's no indication to us that Ford is not entirely committed to this project. They are entirely committed to it, and I feel confident about that.
Governor Bill Lee from earlier today. 50 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock.